Okay. Hey, folks. Happy Sunday. And of course, there will be sirens going off as I start this, but that's okay. Let me make sure my sound is working. God dang. I got windows open over there, but I'm going to leave them for now. All right. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? City living for real tonight, huh? Don't worry. Listen, somebody said I'm rushing to make my tea. I already got it over here this time. I don't got to get up for nothing. All right. So we're going to actually just jump right into it. I'm going to do a few quick shout outs and then we're going to just jump right into this because there's a lot to cover. God willing, we can get through it all. If not, don't worry about it. We can always come back. All right. What up, Santino, Palazzolo? What up, Kayla? Julian, what up? Check out Julian Steve's channel, by the way. He does a lot of really great content. He is consistent. Okay. If you want to talk about somebody that's like putting something out at least 2 or 3 times a week, that's his channel. You know, on mine, I make a video and then y'all don't see me for about 2 weeks. So yeah, he gives a great some great insight on a lot of things. So check his channel out when you get a chance. Dina Newton, Dickerson R, what's up? The Scared Owl, Corey T, KO. Let me see. Let's see. What up, Old Soul? Jarrell Anderson. What up? All right, guys, let's just jump right on into it. All right, just because we got so much to cover. It's been a very, very interesting set of weeks. So what I try to do is we have a lot of entertainment related stuff in this go round. Normally, I really keep it a lot more political, and it's still gonna be, but there's some entertainment related stories I did want to cover and address a little bit. My chair is hitting the stupid mic. It's driving me crazy. All right, but before I do that, the book club, the next session is October 2nd. That's a Monday, 9 p.m. We are reading The Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace. That's going to be chapters 4 through 6 for this next session. So if you are interested, feel free to join us. I will post the Zoom link a little bit closer to the actual date. All right. Thank you, Lil I 3D. Hello. All right. So jumping right into it. I didn't get a chance to really cover the VMAs because, to be honest, I didn't watch the whole thing. I might have seen saw maybe about 30 minutes worth. I saw a section of the pre-show and then some of the award show. But from what I gathered, and just from the commentary I saw on social media, I guess this was somewhat of a better ceremony than some of the ones in the past. For me, it's hard to really get into VMAs because, one, MTV, like, they don't play music anymore. So, you know, I don't really follow what happens in the pop world anymore. I try to, at least for this channel when I'm making content, but in regards to like pop and the super mainstream stuff, sometimes I'm out of the loop. And so with MTV also just not playing any content, like when I watch the VMAs at this point in time, I don't know who these people are. I've accepted that I am not the target audience anymore, and that's fine. But I did get a chance to see some of it. What was interesting, and by the way, they put it on a freaking Tuesday night. I was like, Lord, okay, now I'm going to talk because y'all know I do these lives on Tuesdays and Thursdays and Sundays. Those are normally the days I go live if I go live. But yeah, some folks were like, yeah, why would they move it from a Sunday? And I had to remember, like, well, actually thinking back, they used to be on like a Wednesday and a Thursday because I remember the 99 VMAs. Remember that was on 9/9/99. That was a Thursday, so I remember that. But anyway, I got a chance to see some of it. I was like cooking and I heard somebody perform it. I thought it was Nelly. Like, I was like, oh, Nelly, but it sounded weird. I was like, this sounds like a very, not to be rude or nothing, but like, it sounds like a very kind of kids bop-ish version of Hot in Here. I'm like, I don't think this is Nelly. So I look at the TV and I was like, okay, it's the NLE Chopper guy. I was like, okay, I remember this guy because I remember hearing his song and not really being super hype about it. Nothing against him. I give him kudos for at least trying to dance, but I think the sample just, it kind of overpowers, and you know, it steals the shine on that song. My critique of like sampling, if you're going to sample, because lots of people do it. My favorite rap group, or one of my favorite rap groups, Tribe Called Quest, you know, is when you want to talk about top tier sampling, that was them. But you know, if you're going to sample, my suggestion would be that you don't let the sample outshine you on the song. Like, the sample can't carry the song. A sample is great because, hey, as a person who's grown up in like 90s, early 2000s, a lot of the music had samples. But I think when your sample is pretty much carrying the song, it makes it hard to want to get into it. Plus, he, you know, even with him trying to like sing the hook, and it just, I ain't like that. I was like, I guess. But I will give him the showmanship. He at least tried to do something different, because some of these rappers be boring. They just get on stage and do the bare minimum and do nothing. You know what I mean? But again, with the sampling, that was like the critique I've always had of like DJ Khaled. Like I told y'all, one of my least favorite songs ever is that one he has with SZA that samples the Outkast. Miss Jackson, because it was like you just took the instrumental and just had SZA sing over it. It's like, come on. Like, I don't mind a sample. A lot of my favorite artists have sampled a lot, but I like creativity with sampling. Like, how can you reconstruct a song that already exists and turn it into something that people couldn't have imagined, or turn it into something that wasn't foreseeable? That would be the goal of sampling in my, collective recollection of how to sample. But so be it. So I saw his performance, and then he actually did bring out Nelly. I was like, oh, okay. And then Nelly did his part. I was like, all right, I guess. I think that was the pre-show though. And then I caught some of the 50th anniversary bit, which I'm gonna come back to. Who else did I see before that? I think I saw a little bit of Shakira. Shakira can do no wrong to me. Like, I think people slept on her at the halftime show. Like, I think she really like kind of killed that. The more I look at it, I was like, that was actually a really good halftime. Who else? I saw some of Nicki's. I saw Diddy. Interesting to see Keisha Cole. I was like, okay, cool. I haven't seen Keisha in a minute. I did not catch the Cardi and Megan bit. But I've seen like snippets on Twitter. It looks very lively, and they're gonna have really fun visual performances. Nicki looked really good, by the way, as well. With whatever she was doing. Who else was on this thing? There were so many people. There was some K-pop group, and this is no disrespect to K-pop, but I was lost, y'all. I was so lost because they had like 800 people in the group. And then like, I don't know. I'm not trying to bash the K-pop artists, but there's something that's just so mechanical that drives me crazy with some of the acts, because it's like, yeah, the talent is technically there, but it comes off very, I don't know. It's too programmed for me. Y'all can have it, enjoy. They have their success and sell whatever they sell, but some of it, I was just like, this is so mechanical. I don't even like it. And mind you, this is coming from somebody who follows a lot of visual entertainers that, again, when they go on tour, their shows can be very mechanical as well. But I was just like, what? I guess. So those are like the ones I saw. Plus, I just didn't like the song either. The song didn't do nothing for me. I was like, this is okay, I guess. Maybe I'll have to go and dig into their catalog. I don't even remember who the group was, but it was like 50 of them on stage. Let me see. But going back, the 50th anniversary bit was okay. I think I'll say the same thing that I said with BET Awards. There's no way to really pay homage and give due to 50 years of hip hop in an award show with just like a one-off performance. It's just not going to happen. And so, they had a handful of people. I think they had Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5. They had, I think, Dougie Fresh. They had Nicki Minaj was in that, Lil Wayne, LL Cool J. So it was kind of, you had some representation, but again, to highlight and celebrate 50 years, and then they get the last minute performance at the end for maybe about 10 minutes. Cool, I guess. I'm also accepting the fact that, again, I'm not the target demo for MTV, and most of the people in that crowd probably didn't know who any of those performers were other than Nicki and Wayne, if we want to be honest. And so, I'm going to say like what I said with BET. I think what should have happened to really commemorate the 50th anniversary of hip hop, because there's been other award shows that have done tributes. The Grammys, I think, had an okay one that they did. The BET Awards, they dedicated the entire show to the tribute, and that was cool. But like I said, I think an idea of a festival works so much better. Like, there should have just been a festival where you block off 3 or 4 days, and you have the multiple stages, and you have all these different eras. It could have been a regional thing where you have the main stage, and then you have the smaller stages, and the smaller stages can be some of the regional acts that may not have necessarily crossed over commercially, but were still relatively known in their regions. And then you could still have all the different acts that are going to the main stages, and then the different decades represented. Like, I feel like that's the only way you can properly give hip hop its just due, because there's just no way to fit it all in one award show or fit it all in one performance. Somebody's going to be left out. Somebody's going to be mad, right? I haven't seen too many tributes in modern times that have been where they've just nailed it. Like, if I could think of somewhere they got it right, Soul Train Awards, when they did Anita Baker's tribute in 2010, that was a really, like, that one, that's something where I was like, y'all got that one right. It was Tamia, Faith Evans, Chrisette Michelle, Kim and Rochelle Farrell, El DeBarge, Deion Ferris, Guapale. I know I'm skipping somebody. I know I'm skipping somebody. But I mean, it was perfectly aligned. Perfect set list of songs, perfect set of diversity with the singers. All the singers did what they needed to do. The band sounded amazing. Excellent tribute. I like that tribute so much. I ended up ripping it off of YouTube, and just back when I was still using my iPod, put it on the iPod just to play it because it sounded that good. Another really good one, BET Awards 2016, how they kind of had the entire award show be a tribute to Prince. That was really good. You know, they had everybody and their mama was there performing. I think you had, let me see, you had Tori Kelly, Stevie Wonder, Sheila E., I think closed the set out, Janelle Monáe, Maxwell, Bilal, Erykah Badu. I'm skipping so many people. But again, just, you know, they restructured the entire show to fit around Prince's catalog. And that was really good. When Gerald Levert died, BET Awards again, even though they just did like one quick one-off tribute, I thought that was really good. It was like Patti LaBelle. He had Eddie Levert, which is sad. He's singing to his own stuff. But I mean, it wasn't even anything super extravagant. It was just them with the choir. Patty's going to do her Patty thing. Eddie did his Eddie thing. And I want to say, was Gladys in that too? I can't remember. But excellent tribute. And then I'll say when the Grammys did that special A Night to Stevie, right? That's the one. It was like Beyonce. But Beyonce looks really good with that dress she had on. Lady Gaga, I remember her on the piano performing I Wish. It was just like, you know, like a 2-hour special, like those kind of things when it's intentional. The idea of trying to like throw in last minute, you know, a tribute at an award show where you still have to put in like 50 other acts who are still going to do their material and promote what they have. It's just a weird setup. But I will say, from what I saw, it looks like this VMAs was a little bit better than some of the last ones. So I won't get on my soapbox and rant all day, but that's what I got from the VMAs. Like I said, I didn't see the whole thing, but it looked okay for what it was. The performances that I did get to see, they all seemed okay. Anyway, I want to shift gears and then I'll read the comments after this segment. I got a chance to watch the Kirk Franklin documentary. You know, he has one. It's called, I think it's called Father's Day. It's about, well, it's centered around a few things. And by the way, I will not spoil it. I'm going to talk in parables and fables and try to carefully to make sure I don't mess this up for anybody who wants to see it. Because it's actually out on YouTube. And so, you know, he has an album coming out. And long story short, this documentary follows his journey of connecting with his biological father. He had grown up under the impression that, you know, for years he didn't know who his father was. Then as he got older, he thought he had reconciled with his father. You know, this is some years back, maybe 2016, 2017. And then it turned out that that man was not his father. And so this is about him finding out who his actual father is, the relationships and the dynamics about what happens with family, and just with his journey as well. You know, being somebody who was given up by his mother and raised by, you know, the grandma. And just, there was a quote in there, and I'm going to use this quote just because I think it's universal for a lot of people. But there was a quote he says where he's like, you know, who am I? Well, because I've only known myself broken. I was like, dang, this thing was deep. And I ain't gonna lie, like, I'm such a crybaby. I be crying at everything these days, man. I be like, I think something about working with kids just made me come into a space where I could connect emotionally with how I feel. Because I've said this before, from the age of about 13 or 14 until I was 21, I never cried. I didn't shed a tear about nothing. People had died and I just was looking, you know, I just had no emotional connection to anything. And then, I don't know, around the time I started working with kids, I don't know if it makes you softer or what. And not soft as in weak, but soft as in being able to let your guard down and be emotional or be vulnerable or express or connect with how you feel, right? I was in there choked up. And mind you, that's not even my experience. I was blessed to have both parents around, right? But I don't know if it's because my father has passed. And so automatically that story of like a father and son connection kind of messes you up. Because, speaking of, listen, I'm happy. I got this shirt, Powerline, Goofy movie, but I'm going somewhere with this. So like, I was laughing because I was talking to one of my friends. I was like, I think something's wrong with me. I was watching a Goofy movie and I started crying at the end. Like, it was crazy because it's the scene at the end where they make it to the concert and, you know, they're performing with Powerline and there's something about Max and Goofy on the stage dancing together. I was in there choked up. I was like, what is wrong with me? What is happening? But going back to Kirk, I just think it's you know, it's a really, really, and it's quick. It's only about 35 minutes. It goes really in depth. And again, this is the process of him dealing with that while recording his next album. And before people try to come on here and be like, oh, it's, you know, promotion for the album. No, this was all in real time. If you watch it, what happened to him kind of just happened out of the blue. This wasn't like he was on a journey. He got a phone call about some information and then he, you know, followed up on it. And so there's some great gems in there. It's a quick watch. But no, like I was saying, I think maybe I connected with it because pretty much everybody who's close to me has had somewhat of a similar experience. Like even one of my really, really good friends just found out like their father was not their father. and they weren't even on a mission to like discover anything. They were doing something totally unrelated, just needed some documents and something, and then discovered their father's not their father. Now imagine like you're in your 30s and then that happens, right? That technically happened with my mom as well. Like she discovered that who she thought was her father wasn't her father when she joined the military, when they were going over the documents and stuff like that. And so like, you know, that's the experience for a lot of people. And one of the things I learned as I was watching, and again, I'm trying to not spoil it, but I've learned over time that sometimes when, even if it's not your experience or somebody shares something with you that is very, very like painful to them or, you know, vulnerable, it's not always our job to try to make, you know, everything feel better. Like my thing used to always be, okay, let's get to our new normal. Let's find a solution. And then I've kind of learned over time, like sometimes you just have to be like, I'm here and I'm here. And it's okay to sit in whatever that moment is. So when my friend told me that, hey, I just found out my dad is not my dad. And mind you, like crazy, right? And this person thinks the world of their dad. Like even I've met dad, awesome guy, right? And so you get news like that. And it's like, you know, sometimes there are no words. All you have is I'm here. And it's okay. Like my flaw has always been, like I said, trying to get to the remedy right away, or trying to get to the solution, trying to just be okay. Even when my father died, I don't think I got a chance to really mourn it until maybe maybe when the pandemic hit and I had time to sit and think with it. Now, mind you, he's been gone since 2015. But immediately when he passed, the first thing I started thinking of was my mom. Like, dang, man, that's, you know, that's her man, you know, of 30 plus years. And so like immediately I spent all this time thinking about her and everybody else. And all I remember thinking was like, man, I can't wait to just get to what my new norm is. Like, I'll be glad when I'm over this. And I think I worked so hard to try to move forward and get past it. And then I thought I was good with it. And now maybe not. That's why I'm crying at a Goofy movie. Right. And it's funny because I remember when everything happened, I was even making videos about, you know, how to deal with it when your parent dies. I think I made a video about it, or I made 2 videos about it, but I made like a, you know, how I've been kind of video a few months afterwards. And I could have swore I was all good when I made that video. So, you know, I think with like watching this Kirk documentary, it kind of shows like humans in general, we are such vulnerable beings. Like everything affects our current state of mind, our current everything, things from the past, things that we think we've moved past or been able to move on from, always comes back to us. And I've also learned that when people pass, you don't really move past it. You just learn to live with it, or you learn to adjust to that new normal. And I said this before, like, I think the reason we are often so sad if you lose somebody is because you have a designated love for every person that is in your life that you connect with, right? And, you know, once that person is no longer there and you don't have that love to give to them, but that love is still needing attention and there's a void, that's, in my opinion, where that sadness comes from. But yeah, definitely check out, and of course, you just missed the person as well, but definitely check that out when you get a chance. I thought it was a really great watch, very insightful. I'm looking forward to the album. And I think if you followed his story, you kind of understand why it's an intense watch for a lot of folks. He has some family members I was giving a strong side eye to, but then again, I was like, I guess I have to also look at it from, you know, what is their experience when all of this was happening as well, right? Sometimes you have to really pull back multiple layers. It doesn't just start and stop with, you know, who the star of the picture is. Because again, some of these conversations, there's so many deeper origin stories with a lot of folks. Like when you start digging through your family lineage and stuff starts to make sense when you find out how people were brought up or what people had to deal with. You know what I mean? I'm going to pause for 1 second and then we'll keep it going. All right. By the way, I did not mean for this to turn into a therapy session. Some of y'all are on here ready for me to cuss people out. We'll get to it. Give me a second. All right. Somebody said the Powerline shirt is everything. A Goofy movie reigns supreme. This is like one of my favorite Disney movies. And I was fighting with my friend because I saw the shirt on Big Kid Deals. You know, that Twitter account where they tell you about the different deals and stuff they have. And they had a Powerline shirt. I told my friend, like, listen, I'm getting the blue one. If you get one, don't get the blue because that's me. Don't copy. You can get the black or another color. Right? Let's see. Tyler Hackner said they snubbed Victoria Monet so bad. That was jacked up. I did read about that, where, you know, she wanted to perform and they pretty much told her, you know, it's not time yet. You know, you give her some more time to I guess grow or whatever. I think that's some crap, to be honest. And I will say I understand that maybe she's not a household name yet, right? But I think that's the purpose of these award shows. You could have put her at the pre-show, right? Let her get the pre-show. Because I also saw like what SZA pulled out as well because she wasn't nominated for any of the major awards, even though she's had like a really, really big and great successful 2023. Yeah, these award shows be trifling, but Victoria Monet is on a sold out tour, so I'm sure she's not losing any sleep. Her time will come, and I think her time is here. I just think there's some pockets that aren't paying attention. I think as the industry has shifted and changed, and I have another music related video coming out tomorrow because I'm gonna drag the dude from Rolling Stone. I was gonna talk about it on here, but I was like, let me just give him his own video because he needs some smoke. I just feel like the industry has shifted in a way where we're not going to live in this current or what's left of this era where you have these major superstars that sold, 100+ million records. I think that's time is come and gone. You can try to conflate the stream numbers and make it that, but I think what's going to eventually happen is because the industry is now so saturated and because you don't really have major labels having the same pool, we don't really have music networks doing what they do. Radio doesn't carry the same weight it once had. You have the curated playlist. I just think music is going to kind of be something that is not as collective anymore or not as communal. People will have their cohorts of diehard fans, and there will still be those A-listers that, become household names. But I think you're going to kind of see more artists that are like a Victoria Monet, right? Or who else can I think of? Or even like how Anderson .Paak was pretty like under the radar before he got with Bruno Mars. Like you're going to see a lot of artists like that, or like one of my favorites, Duckworth. You're going to have all of these entertainers who have their cohorts of fans and they're going to be able to tour and do whatever, but they may not necessarily be, this kind of superstar that we saw in the 2000s, the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, just because times have just changed. Unless the pendulum decides to swing back the other way and the industry kind of resets itself, maybe that could be a thing. But like, even with like something like a Beyonce on a Renaissance tour, like a Taylor on the Eras tour thing she's on, like I think those are some of those last entertainers we're going to see in that kind of capacity. I just don't see for a lot of up and coming entertainers to have that caliber of success just because the industry has changed so much. And it's nothing to knock other people's talent or what they can provide, but it's just the industry shifted. We're just, things evolve and change. And like I said on my Billboard video about the music industry, I've just always felt the music industry has always been steps behind whatever the trend or whatever the changes or whatever was evolving in music business or in just the consumer industry. They've always been steps behind. So we'll see. Let me see. Somebody said the message in the song is awful. I don't know what that one's about. All right. Oh, duh. I think y'all talking about the NLE Chopper song. Okay, got you. All right. A Hill said, somebody pick up an instrument, please. I just want there to be more musicality. Like, I'm not even trying to be that person that's always complaining like, oh, music was so good when I was coming up, because every generation thinks what was out when they were teenagers was the best thing ever. It's every generation. When I was coming up, our parents thought the music in the 90s was trash. Y'all don't know no good music. Y'all don't know about what we listened to in the 60s and the 70s. Okay, 60s and the 70s. Their parents thought everything that was in the 60s and the 70s was trash. Y'all don't know nothing because we had the Big Bang and the swing jazz. We had this. Our entertainers had class. Okay, Sarah Vaughan and all them. Sarah Vaughan wasn't gonna come out here showing too much cleavage. Like every generation thinks they're, what's from their era is the best. But I will say, in this modern era, the musicality is hurting. A lot of these folks, I'm not name dropping because I'm not trying to be a hater, but there's a certain rapper that has gotten a lot of fame recently, and on every song that I've heard them on, they are fighting the beat, they're fighting the rhythm, they are fighting the tempo, and they are struggling to just stay in sync with the music. And I'm like, man, come on. Work with us now. Come on, man. Anyway, let us keep it moving. Did I see Keisha Cole's biopic on Lifetime? I don't have Lifetime because YouTube TV doesn't have Lifetime. Look, I got rid of Comcast / Xfinity because they were charging $260, and I was like, I'm over this, y'all. I don't even watch this much TV, so I ain't got it no more. All right, man. Jay Hart said, I felt the tribute was extremely weak. That's how I kind of felt. It just seemed kind of rushed, And at this point, everybody's known the 50th anniversary was coming. Like this should have just. I don't think for this to have been the 50th anniversary of hip hop, I don't think collectively anybody got it right. Like I don't know. Everything was underwhelming. I do commend like BET Awards for dedicating their entire show to it. I'll give the Grammys their kudos for. They did bring out a lot of folks, right? I feel like you got more if you just would have went to LL's Rock the Bell show. He always brings out everybody, but it is what it is. Oh, well, with Prince, there were 2 Prince tributes. So remember, Prince had already, fortunately, he got his flowers while he was alive. So I think when was Alicia Keys pregnant? Remember, she was pregnant on the piano? I want to say that's 2010 or 2009. Might even be 2011, where Prince got a tribute. And it was Janelle Monáe, Esperanza Spalding, and Alicia Keys. And he handpicked who he wanted at his tribute. There was that one. But I'm talking about the 2016 tribute after he passed, and they dedicated the entire show to Prince. Like that was really, really good. All right. Let us keep going. Oh, Raymond. Good job, Raymond. See, we on the same page. He said, what about James Brown with Michael Jackson at the BET Awards? I forgot about that one. That was really good. That, to me, is one of my favorite moments in TV, period. I think, I just remember the BET Awards at one point was like a family thing. Like, we all used to sit and watch it. And mind you, my mom and my dad were they were church folks, but they would watch the BET Awards. And they were watching that year because James Brown was getting his tribute. And so you remember, James Brown was doing his bit, and then Michael Jackson comes out. And it's you see the entire, because I think they were at the Kodak Theater, everybody just erupts and just, man, you got NDRE crying, because you're watching your childhood faves on stage with their childhood fave. That was a really dope moment. And nobody knew that was happening like that. How do you keep it a secret that Michael Jackson's going to be there? They must have had some good NDAs because, in this modern day and time, folks can't hold water for anything, right? That was a great one. Good recommendation. I enjoyed that performance. All right. All right. I have got to keep going because we have a lot to cover, but I am enjoying this interaction. Santi M said that father-son story was powerful, though. I think that's about a Goofy movie. It actually is. Yeah, I don't know. That every time I watch it, I be choked up. Even when I work with the kids, I couldn't even put the movie on because I knew I'd probably start crying in front of the kids. I didn't want them to see me cry. My kids had never seen me cry before, so I was like, they ain't gonna see it then. Actually, no, I take that back. I teared up when I told them that I was leaving, but other than that, they'd never known me to be a crier. So I was like, I don't want them to see me cry at this moment. All right. Let's see. Okay, I want to keep going just because I got a lot to cover. So, Irish from 702. That was sad, wasn't it? So, if you didn't know, Irish, she was a member of 702. Unfortunately, passed away recently. She was 43. You may have seen her on BET Presents the Encore. She was on with her sister. Whatchamacallit? What's the sister's name? Misha or LaMisha. She was on with them. Totally caught me off guard, but the family had released a statement. They said she has had a long battle and she's finally at peace. That's what LaMisha had released. And I felt so bad for LaMisha because, there was another sister that had died as well. You had Oris, right? Because Irish was a twin. You had Oris die some years ago or pass on some years ago. And now you have, Irish pass. So, imagine you lose both of your sisters. That's got to be tough. It made me think back to even Patti LaBelle, how Patti had lost all her siblings. And I remember her talking about, when she did the If You Ask Me To video, she shot that video right after the funeral for the sister. And so the reason she's crying in the video is because she's thinking of the sister. And then I remember she had told the story about how, her sister had already been sick. Her sister wanted her to make an egg sandwich and bring it to her. And Pat was like, oh, I'm going to do it. I get to it. Not today. I'm going to do it tomorrow or something. And then, tomorrow never technically came for the sister. She had passed on. And that was something Patty has dealt with for years and years. Absolutely sad. But I remember Irish had been on medical leave since about December because they had the Urban Music Honors or the Black Music Honors. The Music Honors one it's really good. It's the one that actually has all the actual singers on it where you actually get to hear vocals. And 702 was in the lineup, but it was only Mila and Misha. And I was like, well, where's the other one? I didn't realize she was out for medical leave. I just thought maybe it was some drama or something. And, sometimes groups are like, well, I ain't coming. You can piss me off. I'll come to the next one. I didn't know what was happening. But yeah, it was just the two members. So it's kind of sad. My introduction to 702, I was in Europe when they came out. So if you follow me, I lived in Italy for about 3 years, late 96 to summer of 99. And they had already been out because I remember they were on the Good Burger soundtrack. But for some reason, I don't remember All I Want at the time because I remember still being in the United States, and I still remember seeing Immature's Watch Me Do My Thing video, and it had Kel's character in the music video. I remember that. But by the time the movie came out, I think we were already in Italy. And so anyway, my aunt used to record stuff off the TV. Like she would record like kid shows off the TV and mail them to us because there was no cable over there. We only had one channel because this is like, again, the 90s. Everything is in Italian if you got cable. So we didn't speak Italian. So you only had one channel in English, which was, American Forces Network. And that network would try to put the best of what was on TV in America on one channel. But the kids programming that they put on at the time, I think, they didn't really have any major kids program. We ended up getting a second channel called Spectrum, and Spectrum, I remember, played Rugrats and Doug and Hey Arnold. Then that was maybe 2 years later. But anyway, when my aunt would send me these tapes, all of the stuff that she would record would be from Nickelodeon or Disney, or when they had ABC Kids or Fox Kids in the morning. And so I remember on the tape, it was an All That episode. And it's so funny because people were just posting that performance on Twitter today. But there was an All That episode. And in the episode, it's 702 and they're performing Stilo. I was like, okay, so that was the first time I remember seeing them. And that was also the first time I technically remember seeing Missy Elliott. I always knew her voice, but I didn't really remember what she looked like. I had Missy Elliott and Little Kim mixed up at that time. I thought Missy Elliott was Little Kim. But yeah, I remember I had that on the VHS, probably watched that a million times because that was the closest thing I could get to what was happening in the United States with music. So yeah, that was the time there. So that's my first memory of them. I was just tweeting the other day because I really feel like their Star album was such a good album, but it was overlooked. That's the album that came out in like 2002, 2003. Pharrell Williams did a lot of the work on it. But I thought that was such a good album and it just got ignored. It had the song Star. My favorite song on the album was the Come and Knock at My Door. It kind of has a reference to, what's the sitcom? Dun, 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 dun. I don't know what show that is. Come and knock on my door. Dun, 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 dun. We've been waiting for you. Dun, 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 dun. Y'all know it's some show from the 70s, but it references that. Is that Three's Company? I think it's Three's Company. I don't know. Yep, Three's Company. So it references that, but I love how they did that. It's a cool approach with how they did. I like the song Feelings. I like the song, what else? There's another one on there. Oh, crap. Is it Certified? Something like that. It's a nice album. It was a great album. It was heavily ignored, but it was a great project. So yeah, check that out when you get a chance. All right, let me pause, read a few more comments, and then we're just gonna keep it moving. It's weird watching like entertainers that you remember being like in their early 20s or sometimes teenagers passing on. It's just so weird because it's kind of like thinking back to like even when Tracy Braxton died, right? Weird time. And I get it. It's life, you live, you transition. It sucks, but yeah. So I hope her family as well. 702 was a fun group. I also really liked You Don't Know from the sophomore album. That was a fun song. And I never realized, and maybe I just wasn't paying attention in the Where My Girl's At video, I never realized Misha was pregnant in the video. I never know. For that whole summer of '99, I was glued to the TV because I had just got back to America. And all me and my cousin Brandon, I think Brandon probably got annoyed with me because I never took the TV off the music channels because I felt like I needed to catch up on, everything I missed from 96 to 99. You got some of what was happening in the United States, but a lot of it I missed. So I was like, I need to catch up. Like I told y'all before, I didn't find out Biggie Smalls was dead until I got back to America. He had been dead for 2 years. And I'm like, y'all know Biggie died? Right. So or even like Black had come out that summer. I thought Black was TLC because they were playing 808 on the Italian radio station, Disco Palladio. And I heard Left Eye. And I thought, I was guessing, I'm like, is that Chili singing? Okay. And No Scrubs had just kind of come out and was hitting the Italian radio, but I didn't see the video. I only heard the song. So I'm like, okay, they let Chili lead all the songs now. I got this T-Boss still in the group, And then I got to America and I was so lost because I was watching the Black video and I'm like, I see Left Eye. I think that's Chili, but I don't see T-Boss. That lady is not T-Boss, but then No Scrubs will come on right after. I'm like, I'm lost. So then I realized, okay, this is another group. But no, I just remember like watching all those videos and just being hooked. But I swear, they used to play 702 Where My Girl's At every 5. If they weren't playing that, they were playing the No Scrubs video. They were playing Ricky Martin, Living La Vida Loca. They were playing at that time Britney Spears sometimes. What else was out? Will Smith, Wild Wild West. Every 5 minutes. Now listen, y'all can call that song corny all you want. I ain't gonna lie. That was my song. Like that is my song. It's even on my gym playlist. I be there just cranking because look, Cisco and them was singing down on that. That was like, you can call Will Smith corny all you want, but I will say there is musicality to what it was he used to put out. Man, but like those, like that handful of videos, and then I'll say later down the line, Destiny's Child, Bills, 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 like those were the songs that they played like every 20 seconds on all the music networks. And then what was fun? Oh, Backstreet Boys, I Want It That Way. They played those over and over. And for the million times that I saw that 702 video, I never realized Misha, and she's like a very pregnant too. I don't know how I missed that, but whatever. All right. Like, man. Let's keep it going. Somebody said we don't have A-listers anymore. I think we have a few, but I think a lot of the newer acts, for some reason, there's something that's blocking that threshold from them getting to that space of being an A-lister. You have some that I think are, though. There are some that are household names, but it's just a different era, different time. You know what I mean? Oh, y'all talking about, I wasn't even talking about Ice Spice in that one, but y'all, I guess technically, does she fight the beat? I don't know her music enough to know if she's fighting the beat or not. I got to go back and check her stuff out. But she wasn't who I was talking about. The Al Green tribute was really nice too. I did like that one. I liked his Lay It Down album. It came out, I think it came out the same week as Usher's Here I Stand. But he had the song like Lay It Down, and John Legend was on it. But he had this song that I used to play out all the time called What More Do You Want From Me? Excellent album. No, Lay It Down was him by himself. He had a song called La 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 Means I Love You. That's with John Legend. He had another song with Corinne Bailey Rae on there. That's a nice album. Go check that out when you get a chance. It's real smooth. It's a smooth listen, right? I like when like the seasoned acts that technically aren't commercially, I don't want to say commercially relevant. That sounds insulting, but commercially relevant to the current generation. I like when they come out with music that still sounds current, but still sounds like them. I always gas up Earth, Wind & Fire's Illumination album from 05, 06. It might have even been 04. Like, that's a really great album as well, where it sounds like Earth, Wind & Fire. It's still them, but it's current. It was interesting enough for me as a teenager to want to listen to. So, yeah, that was dope. All right. Y'all quick with the Three's Company. There we go. Okay, I'm going to keep going. Let me see. Okay. This is gonna be quick because I think this is somewhat of a stupid situation anyway. Drake, what are you doing? Like, Drake's starting to get on my nerves, to be honest. Like, I be trying to give him some leeway, but Drake comes off very corny to me. I'm gonna be honest, because he just always does things that make no sense. So you see that I'm just trying to keep my little notes out here. So you see, like, Halle Berry is not happy with him right now. He has the song, what is it, Slime You Out, I think, whatever it's called, you know, some title that's very suggestive, right? So he has the Slime You Out song, right? It has SZA on it. And the picture that they've used for the promotional campaign for the song is a picture of Halle Berry from the Kids' Choice Awards getting slimed, right? So she has all the green slime on her face and everything. And so Halle was not happy because let me see what she said. Somebody asked her what was her thoughts on somebody using that picture as a single. And understand, you got to put the context. Slime You Out. What do you think it's about? Okay, you know, think about life after 11:30 p.m. Maybe 2 p.m. for some of y'all that work from home. But like, you know, what happens after night? You put 2 and 2 together, and then you have the imaging of a slimed up Halle Berry. Like, you kind of get what the imaging is. And she was saying he didn't get her permission. That's not cool. I thought better of him. And then she said, hence my post today. When people you admire disappoint you, you have to be a bigger person to move on. And so a lot of people were saying, well, you know, she technically doesn't own the picture. It's Getty Images. So what's the big deal? But then she went on to say, well, his management actually reached out to my management and said, hey, is this cool? And I said, no, it's not cool. I don't want this image to kind of be correlating to what it is that you're talking about. And then he still did it anyway, right? So to me, that's some real flaky stuff. Like, you should have just gone ahead and done it without asking for permission. If you were still going to go ahead and do it anyway, what was the point of asking? That makes you just look, you know, that makes your character come into question, you know? And again, the context. I find it weird that you would use a picture that has an innocent connotation with it. You know, the Kids' Choice Awards coming, I think that still comes on, but I know as a child, when that award show came on, we liked it because it's like all your favorite celebrities are there. Cool. When they would get slimed, it's like, yay, they're like one of us, you know. But there were certain celebrities that were not going to get slimed. Like when Whitney Houston used to host it, she already told them, don't even think you sliming me. It ain't happening, right? But, you know, as a kid, you'd be excited to see your favorite celebrity get slimed. And it was all in fun, right? Like a game. And so now you sexualize it. And then you not only take Halle Berry of all people. You know, we love us some Halle Berry around these streets. And so to just still blatantly go and do whatever you do, like, come on. Drake be moving. So he moves ever since once he did that bit and he had that little line in there about Meg when everything was happening. I was like, oh, so you bought into the nonsense too. Okay, gotcha. I look at him differently. Do better. Just corny. He's been moving real weird lately. And I don't like it. Don't like it. All right. Okay, I'm going to read comments one more time, and then we're going to shift energy. I have some more celebrity-related stories, but I need to get to some of the heavier stuff first, and we'll come back to the celebs because we need to handle some business around here. All right. Let me see what we said here. Yes, 99 was the year. That's one of my favorite years. It might have just been because I was back in the United States and I was just happy to catch up on everything. Oh, I remember the box. Now I couldn't do the box because you had to pay when you requested the video. I wasn't crazy to dial that number in. I would have got snatched up. So no, but I remember the box. Like I want to say the reason Juveniles back that thing blew up had to be because of the box. I remember that song getting so much play on the box way before it started getting a lot of heavy rotation on BET and MTV. Like, because people, you know, the box, to me, the box represents kind of a precursor to a lot of, well, yeah, like a precursor to a lot of the like call-in request TV shows because it's kind of run by the viewer where they call in and request their videos. I remember Gwen Stefani talking about when No Doubt had come out with their first album. And they had that song Trapped in a Box. It's a song nobody's ever heard of because most people know them for Tragic Kingdom, right? But, you know, she talked about how her and the band, they would request their song on the box just because that was the only place that would play it, right? But yeah, I remember it getting so much play on the box. And this is like August of 99, right? And then I feel like the song really didn't blow up until the end of 99, like November, December, going into January is like when it finally like had crossed way over. If I can remember, I could be wrong, but that's what I remember. Anyway, Harold said, I remember sometimes Britney vividly. That was her next single after Baby One More Time. Yeah, because by the time I got to America, Baby One More Time had already come and gone. Like it was really big in Italy, like the song, we heard it, but I had never saw the video. The first time I saw it, well, it wasn't even a video. Those Now commercials, you know, like the Now 15, and it has all the hits from the time, or Now 25. I got back to America. This is how old I am. It was the Now 2 commercial. And on the Now 2 commercial, if I can remember, they had the Britney Spears Baby One More Time. That's when I learned she was a white girl because I thought Britney was black when I heard the song on the radio. And I was like, who's this? That's like a white girl with pigtails. I was like, what is this? Because remember, like pop music at the time, other than Madonna, who, you know, had a little bit of kick to her stuff, most of the white girls in pop music had very like Wilson and Phillips type music. You know, they weren't really, there wasn't going to be no bass line and a bit of extra funk with it. You know, so I just knew that was like a black teenage girl, a girl group or something. I didn't know Britney was black, but you know, I think Britney was on that. There was a Robin Williams song that was on that soundtrack. God, why do I remember this? I just remember the guy saying "No to." I'm gonna go to YouTube and watch the commercial after this. But anyway, yeah, what a time. What up, cousin? I see my cousin Tiffany on here. Y'all look. My cousin Tiffany is getting it, and Tiffany done did like 30 movies in like the last 2 years. She is getting it in. That's my cousin that sings, right? That's the real singer in the family. I do a little yeah, but I'm more of a producer. I just happen to sing as well. But yeah, what up, cousin? All right, let's keep it going. Let's see. Course Correction said, after Drake's Meg diss, I can't believe people still mess with him. He's been corny and toxic. I just don't get why. Halle Berry, in my opinion, is just, there's certain people I just wouldn't want to piss off just because they always have really good energy and don't really bother nobody and they mind their business. Like, I wouldn't want to piss off Halle Berry. I wouldn't want to piss off people that do good things. I was going to start naming people, but I'm afraid if I start naming people, y'all going to say something that they did wrong in the chat, and I'm going to have to reconsider. So, man, but, you know, this just, why? I can't. I'm good. Right? It's corny now. It's corny at this point. Like, grow up. All right. Okay, I want to shift gears here. because I think this is a very important article. Now, we have spent many lives in the news episodes talking about what's happening with Heirs property, but now I want to talk about Sapelo Island. I think I said it right. Let me make sure I got this right. Let me pull up. I'm going to read the article and then we will chat. All right. Now, remember, we've had a lot of conversations about like Heirs land. We have had a lot of conversations about how, Black Americans in general have lost like 15 million acres of land in the last 100 years due to policy, nonsense around eminent domain, people being bought out, people being taxed out, people being pushed out, thievery, all kind of stuff. All right. So I'm going to read this article really quick and then we'll talk. All right. Now, this is coming from The Guardian. Gullah Geechee people fight against erasure of the historical land. Descendants of enslaved people in Georgia protest vote for lifting protective laws threatening a 230-year-old heritage. For more than 230 years, a small community of Gullah Geechee people have called Sapelo Island, I hope I'm saying it right, off the coast of Georgia, home. Hog Hammock, the area on the island where these descendants enslaved, Hog Hammock, the area on the island where these descendants of enslaved people live, is a 427-acre coastal community of 40 residents and has been designated as a historic site since 1996. That means that the construction of houses more than 1,400 square feet and any road paving or demolition of property are strictly prohibited to preserve the island community. On Tuesday, county commissioners who preside over Sapelo voted to remove zoning restrictions in Hog Hammock. Gullah Geechee residents fear that wealthy transplants who want to develop larger homes and who could force a rise of property taxes there will displace them and upend their livelihoods. The county, which is 65% white, has voted to remove official language that acknowledges Hog Hammock as an area with unique needs in regard to its historical resources. It will also strike language that states it should prevent land value increases, which could force the removal of indigenous populations. I'm going to read that again to make sure y'all didn't miss that. It also will strike language that states it should prevent land value increases, which could force removal of the indigenous population. The vote represents the latest dispute between county officials and the small historic Black community. Back in 2012, Hog Hammock residents protested against the county's raising of property taxes, which the county then rolled back. And in 2015, the community sued the county in federal court, alleging that it had racially discriminated against residents by failing to provide them with adequate resources. The island's residents had paid county taxes for schools, police, and fire departments and trash collection services, none of which extended to Sapelo Island. The county settled the lawsuit over the last year, agreeing to give emergency and road services and freeze property taxes for some residents. Last Thursday, dozens of residents gave hours of testimony to the county zoning board, arguing against the proposed changes, warning that the county had made changes without community consideration. Reginald Hall, a landowner whose family had roots in Hog Hammock, told the Associated Press the county's approval would amount to the erasure of the historical culture that is still intact after 230 years. Residents and state lawmakers called for the county to delay their vote and to reflect on the proposed changes for 90 days. We will not allow our cultural history to be erased or bought at the price of land developers, the state representative said, who represents Atlanta, told. This is our history and our heritage, and we will fight to protect it. Let me see this, another piece on here. Hall warned the county's vote to remove development limits would give Gullah Geechee residents in Hog Hammock just 2 to 3 years at most to survive in the county before they scatter elsewhere, as 200,000 Gullah Geechee people have already done across the southeastern corridor of the United States. If you talk about the descendants of the enslaved, she said, 90% of us will be gone. Whew, that's a read there. So, one, just to give some additional context with what's happening, the commission went ahead and voted, and they voted to do what they're going to do. So they've already voted to raise that maximum with the square footage from 1,400 to 3,000. In addition to that, when you're talking about the commission, there's only 5 people on the commission. They voted 3-2. So it's crazy because when you think about it, 5 people got to make the decision for the livelihood of everybody else on this island. And what you're going to see end up happening, right, is that you're going to watch developers come in, because now that, a 1,400 square foot house is not that appealing for developers because it's on a relatively smaller side. But 3,000 square feet, that's very marketable. That's very, we can, develop and build, and we can sell these houses for upwards of $700,000 and more because people will pay for it because of the location. This is a part of the Sea Island Gallery region, right? And again, that's prime real estate. When you think back to like Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck, the first time they were trying to get married, okay, where did they go when they were going to buy that house? They went right over there to Savannah. They were going to get a house right over there. Where's that property that they recently bought for like $8 or $9 million? in the same region in all those different islands. Like, it's prime real estate. It's not far from Hilton Head, which is another area that pretty much got, snatched away and bought up by the developers. A lot of people have lost their land over there, and so it's prime real estate. It's golfing, it's resorts, it's everything. The climate that's there is great for people who, especially when you get older, when you want to live somewhere where you can't have cold air blowing on your knees all day because you might have a replacement. This is the perfect place to go to. So, and again, even with the location, like when you talk about like that area around Savannah, and let's cross our fingers and knock on wood, Savannah normally doesn't really get hit with a lot of hurricanes because of how, it's kind of indented within that coastline. So when storms are coming up the Atlantic, because you have South Carolina that kind of sticks out and Savannah's tucked under it, a lot of times South Carolina will get hit. Savannah often gets spared. Normally, if Savannah ever gets hit by a hurricane, it's because something came from the Gulf Coast and crossed up through Florida into Georgia that way. And by the time Savannah gets hit, it's not even, a major storm. It might be a Category 1. Maybe a Category 2. There hasn't been a lot of hurricanes that have been like a direct hit going like across the Atlantic over into west, going westward, because most hurricanes in the Atlantic go up the coastline. They don't really just go straight across. You don't hear about storms going like straight across Georgia over into, Alabama, Mississippi that way. They come up, they come over, or coast up, go up the coastline, right? And so you have developers that are, hey, they're about to swarm in. And the fact that these people have been in this area since 1802, and there's just straight disregard for their experience. And so again, when we're talking about the residents, right? So you have 29 original residents that are left, as far as people who have some kind of name on some kind of deed, right? They said 40 people in the article, but it's 29 people who have land associated with their name. That's not including the children, right? They own 63% of all the properties in that area and 75% of the acreage, or as far as that 400 plus acres, they own 75% of it. Understand that this is a strategic move. It is a move to push the poor people out. Let's be honest, push out the poor people, bring in everything, because millions can be made if they can take over this area, right? They can snatch all of this up, because it's definitely an area where, again, everybody's trying to come out there, especially as people retire and they go further back south. It's the perfect ideal location, right? And this is why I've been saying for a long time that local politics is everything. Sometimes I get pushed back on here and people are always like, you always talking about voting. What's that done for black people? What is voting going to do? And for the millionth time, voting is not a marriage to everything working out. Voting is not going to be to save everything, end all be all, but it is one piece of an element that gives you a bit of leverage politically, especially at a local level. When you talk about what's directly affecting most of us, a lot of it is coming from a local standpoint, right? So again, this is a commission that had 5 people on it. That's local politics, right? Local politics. There's a reason they don't want us to vote in these things. And it's not saying that when you vote, everything is fixed and all is well. That just means you put somebody in there that you trust to go and do what it was that they said they're going to do. There still has to be the follow-up. There still has to be that idea of being politically astute. There's still that idea of, okay, if this candidate isn't working, you already got next in line who's going to be there. There's still the element of going to a lot of these different town halls and everything, because what's happening is they play on the stupidity of the general public. They know most people are not really politically invested in a lot of stuff, and a lot of the laws that have passed at local levels are things most people don't even know about. It's pretty much a lot of the people in charge move in a space where they're like, you know what, if they don't know about it, they can't be mad about it. And this is why you have all of these quiet elections and votes that happen behind closed doors and closed hearings and everything, and people have no clue about anything until it hits their front door. And this is not attacking the people in Georgia. I'm just highlighting what's been happening across the country in general. But again, showing how powerful those 5 people are in that commission, right? And so again, it's just highlighting the fact that politically people have to be more engaged to what's happening, because what you're seeing happen there is happening everywhere. It's just not in that region. And so I want to go even deeper, because now I want to shift over to Louisiana, because Louisiana, I'm scared for y'all, because I was looking at what's happening with your current state elections. And Louisiana has so many state house elections that are running, or as far as candidates that are running unopposed, right? And y'all got enough going on over there, so please pay attention to what's happening in Louisiana. You guys already had 2 Democrat candidates all of a sudden magically switch parties, right? Because I think what you're also seeing is you're seeing a lot of people who register as being a member of a certain party get into office and then switch over, right? And so, because again, it's a power grab, do it that way. So you had, you had Jeremy Lacombe, District 18, that's kind of like the West Baton Rouge area. He was somebody who ran as a Democrat, got all these people's votes, and now he's shifted over, and now he's, getting behind a policy that's going to disenfranchise that very population, right? And you have Francis Thompson, Francis Thompson, again, another candidate in Louisiana, or somebody who was already elected got into office and then switched parties. Like, pay attention. And when we're talking about people that run on the post, like, understand that's how we got Marjorie Taylor Greene. When she first ran, nobody ran against her. And a lot of times people don't do it because it's like, well, it's some random town that's, 90% gonna vote GOP Republican anyway. What's the point, right? But the idea is now look at how much power she has. Look at all of the positions she's been appointed to. Somebody who was in some random district in Georgia that nobody ever heard of is now making decisions for all of us that affect all of us where we're collateral, right? Because she sits on all these committees. So understand, like, there's a lot going on. And then, like, in Louisiana, there's three big, like, there's some elections and some votes coming up. You have the amendment that's coming out that pretty much, I think, is one that people should really pay attention to. It would put a, it would be a measure that bans, private funds coming into grants that help election officials. Pretty much meaning, like, private grants that are making, like, how do I word this? I'm trying to make sure I'm not speaking too politically. Private grants that would pretty much help election officials and administrators, where it can be influenced, where you have donors who you don't know who they are. They put a big lump sum into somebody's pocket, and then, they pretty much lobby for there to be additional legislation to make changes to how things are taking place. Kind of like what you've seen in a lot of states where all of a sudden, because people didn't like the 2020 election results, they started going and gutting, election commissions and stuff like that. That's what that's about. So again, the conversation of money and politics. Then you have the sheriff election, which is a really, really big one. Because again, when you're talking about the guy, Sid Gautreaux, that freaking prison system he has, mind you, the death rate in those prisons is twice the national average. Right? So pay attention to that election. Okay, that's that sheriff election. And then you also have the governor race taking place. So it's like, again, like local politics. And that's just Louisiana. I could maybe do a live and go state by state and tell everybody what they need to pay attention to. But again, like, local politics is like, you know what I mean? It's really something serious. And like I said, voting is not the fix to everything, but it is one step to have some leverage. Like, it's not about voting to just get what you want. But at this point, we're voting just to hold on to what we got left, right? Which sounds terrible. But until you can get a lot of these loony folks out of these positions they're in, because I've said since about 2018, a lot of these people have been cementing the nonsense that they're doing. Like, they get into these positions and then they restructure how the entire process works. They get rid of positions that are electable and change them to positions that can be appointed. And then they make them lifelong appointments and everything like that. And so now you get people who are just the scum of the earth in charge of everything. And a lot of times, most of us have no idea about who these people are or what it is that they do. Because again, most elections that most of us pay attention to, you pay attention to the presidential, you might pay attention to what's happening with the governor's election and the state and the Senate. But once we start getting to those smaller levels, and once you really start getting to just even in your district, in your county, like those really, really small ones, because again, there's not billions being pumped into those elections. Most people have no idea, right? I think that's how we got, the Tea Party that came in and ran up everything after 2010. You have the midterms in 2010. Everybody was still riding the Obama high. Oh, it's a good time. Barack's up in there, and you just got the Affordable Care Act. Everybody was celebrating, and folks up on the other end of the spectrum, people were pissed off. Oh, we're going to show y'all. And so, boom, here comes the midterms. And now all of a sudden you lose the House or the Senate or whatever you lost and everything like that. And then we saw the shenanigans that would happen for the next 6 years because there was just no power. Pretty much, to me, the Obama era in regard to him being able to get anything substantially done was just in the first 2 years. That was the window he had, because the next 6, it was going to be obstruction the entire time coming from the GOP. Like, again, you had people like Gingrich and all of them go have their meeting and say, we're going to make sure this MF doesn't get anything done. We're going to vote no on everything. Here comes the Tea Party, who all of a sudden they're all about patriotism and some other crap. That's where we're at, right? So just understand. And the people recognize, or at least these people in charge, they recognize there's still some element of power in voting, which is why they do the nonsense they do. So then look at what's happening with Alabama. I'm going to read the article. Alabama got a lot of nonsense going on. Like, you've seen the conversations around the redistricting, right? They had this district. Supreme Court ruled and said, no, you cannot have this district because it disenfranchises Black voters. You need to at least have 2 districts that can fairly represent the people of Alabama. And they said, okay. And they went to the drawing board, came back, and still only had 1 district. And we're like, here's what it is. Like, it's to the point where they said, we'll just defy the Supreme Court. We just ain't going to do it. What y'all going to do about it? And so we're seeing the nonsense. So let me pull up the article really quick. Just want to make sure put everything into the right context. And what's so crazy is, of course, remember how I always say follow the money? How I always say politics in America is always going to be rotten to the core until money is taken out of it. Here's a prime example. Here's the article. It says, and this is coming from the Alabama Political Reporter, dark money, the backstory of Alabama's redistricting defiance. There appears to be a significant connection between Alabama's post-Milligan map redrawing process and a powerful national dark money network. The Alabama legislature's open defiance of the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling in Allen v. Milligan, ordering the creation of a second majority black district, baffled and infuriated the federal three-judge panel that initially ordered the state to redraw its 2021 congressional map. APR has now identified connections between Alabama officials who led the 2023 redistricting, let me slow down, process, which disregarded the U.S. Supreme Court's order, with far-right power broker Leonardo Leo's dark money network described this past week's by political. I cannot read to save my life. Let me back up track and slow down. All right. With far-right power broker Leonardo Leo's dark money network described this past week by politicals as a billion-dollar force that has helped remake the judiciary and overturn long-standing legal precedent on abortion, affirmative action, and many other issues. APR's reporting shows the extent to which Alabama's calculation to defy the Supreme Court was made not simply by state legislators in Alabama, but has been driven nationally by connected political operatives at the center of the well-documented right-wing effort to reshape the composition and jurisprudence of the Supreme Court and to overturn the remaining key protections established by the 1965 Voting Rights Act. Despite the organization's claim that it does not take positions on political policies or nominations, former President Donald Trump famously stated that Leo's Federalist Society has picked his judges, and all 6 Republican-appointed Supreme Court justices were seated with major help from Leonardo Leo. See how all this just ties together? Who has come to be known as the hidden architect of the Supreme Court. With few exceptions, the justices Leo has ushered to the bench have reliably voted to permit the partisan gerrymanders and strict restrictions on voting access that have proliferated in recent years from red state legislators, which themselves work in tandem with and sometimes under the direction of Leo's dark money groups. Again, now we're talking about the gerrymandering because it's not just Alabama. We've seen it everywhere. And so even with what I said about Louisiana and how they just have so many people that are running for office unopposed, a lot of those places where they're unopposed are such heavily gerrymandered districts, people don't even want to run because they realize they have like a long shot, like you get in the car and drive 200 miles kind of shot of even having a viable chance at winning because so many districts are that gerrymandered, right? Let me keep it going. Let me see. There's one more piece in here I want to read. This is a long article, so we're not going to read the whole thing, but there's another piece on here I want to highlight. All right, here we go. Reporting from Politico and the Washington Post has identified the 85 Fund, then called the Judicial Education Project, as the vehicle through which Leo coordinated the movement of up to $100,000 to Justice Thomas's wife, Jeannie Thomas, we know her, that's Clarence's wife, between 2011 and 2012, at least, and possibly for continuing years. The Washington Post noted that same year, the Judicial Education Project filed a brief to the Supreme Court in a landmark voting rights case in which Justice Thomas joined a decision in accordance with the Judicial Education Project's brief. The 85 Fund has also been tied to Leo's efforts to coordinate anonymously funded briefs to the U.S. Supreme Court in highly charged political cases. Among the attorneys listed on the state contract disclosure is Tyler Green, one of the 3 trustees on a $1 billion trust fund helmed by Leo, which helps administer Leo's largest dark money operation called the Marble Freedom Trust. Remember how I said every time you see something with patriot or freedom or liberty, it's always some nonsense? This is what I'm talking about. Green, who clerked for Justice Thomas and formerly served as the solicitor of the Solicitor General of Utah, is also a contributor to the Federalist Society, which Leo helms as the co-chair of the board. The Attorney General's office contract lists Edmund LaCour, Solicitor General, as the attorney assigned to work with Consovoy McCarthy. LaCour is also a Federalist Society contributor and previously clerked for the 11th Circuit Judge William Pryor, a close ally of Leo and Justice Thomas. You see how all of this is webbing together? Now, from this random story about Alabama's folks just not drawing the map the way they were supposed to, now it ties to Leo, who has now tied us to Jeannie Thomas, who has a direct connection to Clarence Thomas. And then in addition to that, there's another web that's going to, now we're going to the 11th District Court. Remember, there's a 13th Circuit Court in the United States. So pretty much Leo has connections in all of the court circuits, if that's what we're getting to, right? Let me see. LaCour's wife, Alice She LaCour, is also a Federalist Society contributor, and her Federalist Society profile notes that she served on the confirmation teams at the Justice Department to elevate Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh to the U.S. Supreme Court. See, follow the money. You see how this is all connecting? All of this crap is connected. The LaCours have also been involved with Catholic far-right organizations with close affiliations to Leo. They are both in their 30s with law degrees from Yale. Like, man, I'm going to pause because we'll be here all day. Because, I mean, I'm going to actually put the link to this article in the description when we re-upload. But just understand, like, the point that I'm making is, like, when I say all this crap is connected, so in the same way we can talk about Edward Blum, which is the other guy that, remember, he's a guy we've talked about a few times where he ran for office in the Houston area, lost, mainly because Black America did not vote for him, or Black voters in that area did not vote for him. He had a vendetta against Black voters after that and said, I'm going to show y'all. And so ever since about 91, he has fought and clawed and put in all these different lawsuits to try to strip away any element of progress that has ever taken place in regards to the livelihood of Black Americans. He's come after affirmative action. We've seen what's happened with, and now he's suing. I wrote it down on my phone the other day. The group, Lord. It's the venture capitalist group. It was the Black-owned venture capitalist group, because they gave me some numbers here. Let me see if I can find it really quick. Because the lady that was on it was on The View the other day, and somebody posted it on Twitter. She was giving some numbers here. Let's see if I can find it. Man, come on. Where is that thing at? Okay, I'm gonna keep talking while I look for it, but dang. Somebody gave me the numbers. Give me the numbers. I had some numbers on here. Where's it at? I'm getting pissed because I can't find it. And y'all are still sitting here looking at me look. Okay, I'm going to come back to it. It'll come to me at some point. But, man. But going back to what I was saying, like, all of this is connected. Like, every bit of it. And so when I kept saying that they were doing everything that they could do to cement things, this is what we're talking about. When I say cement, it's not just about somebody gets in office and they get to stay there. It's they get into office, they put in the right people, they connect with folks who have power, who have money to lobby and inspire and influence legislation. And like, before you know it, you have this complex web of all these people who have these connections. Why do you think that even with Trump being charged in Georgia, why do you think there's 19 people connected to it, in addition to what could have been a possible 30 in total that, they didn't charge everybody? There was like a list of 30 folks that were all recommended to be charged, and they charged 19. There's a reason why all these folks are connected. Like, when you're talking about cementing, it's just not a handful of people, but it's a web of nonsense, right? And so that's Alabama. So you literally have legislators who are bold enough to get an order from the Supreme Court and just do whatever they want to do. And then recognize that most likely nothing's going to happen, because this very people who are making this very corrupt redistricting map have a connection to somebody on the Supreme Court. Boom, Clarence Thomas. And so, they have some leverage with Clarence. So, we can probably defy it and what's going to happen. Like, so that's the kind of nonsense we're talking about. And then you even get to what you saw with Texas. And you have Ken Paxton, right? He was just acquitted on his 16 counts, or his 16 articles of impeachment, right? And again, why did they pretty much let him slide? Because, hey, your favorite president, for number 45, threatened to make sure that every single person who would have voted to get Paxton out of there would have been primary. Because no matter how much because not everybody feels the same way, but no matter how much people may hate or dislike Donald Trump, he still carries a lot of power and weight within his party. And so Trump pretty much said, if Paxton is impeached, every single GOP representative that voted to impeach him will be primaried by somebody of Trump's choice. Like, that's the kind of nonsense we're in. So the fact that this article started in Georgia, we done started in Georgia with what they're doing with the Gullah Geechee community. Now we done shifted to Louisiana. We done got to Alabama. Now we done got to Texas. So like how I say, all of this stuff is webbed together. Like, this is what we're talking about, right? And it's not just the southern states, because then we can get to Wisconsin, right? And so I want to go to this article too, because you just watched the people in Wisconsin literally remove an elected official, not for any valid reason, but just because, again, folks didn't like what happened in 2020. So they said they're just going to do some nonsense. Let me see if I'm only going to read a piece of it. Let me see here. All right. The Republican-led Wisconsin Senate on Thursday voted to remove the state's chief election official ahead of the 2024 presidential election. And by the way, that was a nonpartisan official that was elected. They weren't on either side of the argument. They just wanted to make sure there was no shenanigans, right? Prompting a lawsuit from the state's top prosecutor, who said the Senate lacked the authority. In a 22-11 vote along party lines, Republicans voted to remove Megan Wolf, a nonpartisan administrator of the Battleground States Election Commission. Right. So this is what we're talking about. Where again, why do you think they're removing somebody who oversees all that? In the same way how folks went and tried to, change the results of what happened in 2020, and we saw these different state elections, and you still got Carrie Lake in Arizona who will not accept that she lost and is still running around here talking about the election was stolen and we need to do this and investigate this person. Like, this is nationwide, right? And the reason everybody's fighting and clawing to do all this is, again, because folks are trying to protect and cement in that status quo. The status quo of the United States is whiteness. The status quo of the United States is upholding white supremacy at the expense of everybody else. The status quo of the United States is still rooted in anti-blackness. The status quo of the United States is still going to be imperialism at the expense of everybody else. We're going to still always jump into wars with random countries all the time and go and say we're going to give some people some freedom, but really there's some kind of special interest in whatever country that we want. Like, that's where we're at, right? And so again, all of these folks are recognizing that as later generations come up, people are like, we're over the nonsense, because what's happened is now you're starting to see the end result of those earlier origins. Reaganomics is still affecting us today. Bush and his stuff is still affecting us today. Stuff from Clinton, like all these different, presidencies of the past are still hitting us today. And Gen Z, millennials, the younger half of Gen X are really catching it. And it's like, hold up, we just can't keep going business as usual because y'all got too much nonsense around here. And for the longest, a lot of politicians have been able to just run and do anything they wanted because most of them are going to be dead by the time, a lot of this policy really has a negative effect on society. Or a lot of these folks are already so rich, they'll be able to buy their way into whatever element of comfortability they want to be in at the expense of everybody else. So none of this affects them. This is why when you talk climate change, a lot of these politicians could care less because they're going to be dead anyway. And a lot of these people don't even care about their own families because, again, we go back to when COVID-19 first showed up and we really didn't know a lot about it yet. And this was at the time where everybody really thought like, okay, this is like killing a lot of people. Let's be careful. And, they kind of slowly shut the country down. You literally watch all these politicians say, well, it's fine to open the country back up. Our grandparents are willing to die to, allow, our country to open back up because they love the country so much. And really, it's a money grab. People were looking at their pockets. Had nothing to do with, do you care about the livelihood or the well-being of those who would have been compromised and vulnerable to what was happening? No, it was all about money. So understand, like, everybody's fighting and clawing to cement what's here. So you're going to continue to see people try to cement what's happening with elections by either making sure that people just don't vote, do what you got to do to make it hard for them to vote, be like Harris County in Texas and only have one polling station for 2.3 million people, go and come up with new voter ID laws, come up with new rules about whatever to ensure that people have to deal with, whatever nonsense they have. It's just like, there's so much nonsense out there and you have to really like pay attention. So in addition to what it is that you want to fight for, specifically for what it is you want, like me as a Black American, listen, I'm all about reparations and restorative justice and, making Black people whole in America. But at the same time, I recognize that I can't even vision and dream or get to that if you got so many people in power that are corrupt, where that's not even going to be a viable conversation in the next 10 years, depending on who's in office and who's in these positions. Like, you've also seen the legislation, and I think we talked about it in another live, where I don't remember what state it was, but they had pushed the policy where they were going to set it up where if there was a state that signed on to any element of reparations, they'd automatically lose federal funding. Like, this is how folks are moving. So you really have to kind of pay attention to what's happening because there's so much. So that's Wisconsin. But I will say, because I don't want this to be all gloom and doom, I do think there are some brighter sides to also what's happening. Because I saw the politician Ro Khanna, and he's introduced, I don't think it's going to pass because I know how these politicians are. He's introduced policy that would ban stock trading for Congress and their spouses, which I think is important because, again, people in Congress make, about six figures, but a lot of these people in Congress are worth 20, 30, 40, sometimes $200 million, right? And I get it. Some of these folks have book deals. Some of these folks were already rich before they got in office, but a lot of folks are getting rich from just going into politics. They also have a portion where they ban Congress from lobbying after certain things, right? Because it should be that if you're in Congress, you should just push and lay down whatever laws. The idea of letting companies come in and influence what it is that you put on the ballot because they paid you off behind the scenes is an issue, right? It also includes 12-year limits for people in Congress as far as terms, meaning after 12 years, you got to get out, which I actually like that idea. I think, again, we see Mitch McConnell, right? Mitch McConnell up there freezing out, and I don't know what's going on with Mitch, but, he's been in office so long, right? And at this point, he will not even live to see the outcomes of what it is he has pushed or stopped or blocked or put into legislation or gutted. He's going to be, I'm not trying to kill the man off, but his time is winding down, right? So when we're talking 20, 30 years from now, when a lot of people are really like catching the brunt of the policy that's out now, he won't be here to experience it, right? And again, banning lobbyists and PAC donations, pretty much taking the money out of politics. One of the things that I've always said a million freaking times, like American politics is always going to be trash as long as there's money involved, because pretty much people get bought out. And when people do go into office and mean well, we see what happens. You can't get anything passed. They may mean well, they may have some great policy, and when it's up for the vote, nobody's going to vote on it because they're not trying to mess up their pocket, because they got all kind of backdoor deals and stuff with everybody else, and they got a connection with this company. Like, understand, when people run for office, when they get these donations for their campaign, understand, look, here's a scenario. Let's say I'm running, which is not going to happen, but I'm running for, I don't know, I'm running for the House for the state of Nebraska, right? And I'm running, and all of a sudden, here comes all these companies, and let's just say that they knew I had a YouTube channel, and they knew what I talked about all this time, and they knew that if I got into office, yeah, we talking reparations, we talking climate change, we talking restructuring education to make it paid for by the state and federal government, where college should be free. Like, we doing all of that, and so understand that's money lost for a lot of these corporations. So automatically, they're going to come to me and say, hey, I know you're talking all that climate change and stuff, but we're from Exxon, and so we want to put $20 million into your campaign. We're going to give you $20 million, and all you got to do is anytime something comes across the desk or there's some kind of vote, and I don't know, they want to make the auto industry have a stipulation whereby 2035 no cars can be dependent on fossil fuels. You just make sure you vote no on that. Your money is good with us, and we're gonna fund everything you want. You're gonna have the best commercials. You're gonna have the best ads. You want some backup dancers? We heard you do music too. We can give you some dances. We can throw concerts. So now, and if I'm a terrible person, I'm like, ooh, 20 million sound a whole lot more than what I make. Sure, check. And now you got them in your pocket. And then it's also like, okay, I also said all the stuff about education and everything like that, and how people are getting ripped off. Here comes Sally Mae. Hey, there's this whole movement with folks who want their student loans forgiven and stuff. And, you're going to mess up what we got. So how about this? We're going to give you about $5 or $6 million. And if there's any kind of legislation that comes through the state of Nebraska in regard to education, with there being some kind of regulation or a cap on tuition or a cap on how much interest can be charged by private companies and anything like that, you just vote no. And we going to hook you up. Hey, we heard your dog is sick. We can pay the dog's medical. But like, this is American politics. And then you go, okay, well, I love my dog. And before you done sign on to something. Like, when I tell you these politicians are so bought out, and that's within both parties as well. I give the GOP a whole lot of smoke because they're going to always catch it for me. But don't be fooled. There are a lot of people on that Democrat side, or the Democratic side, they got a lot of nonsense as well, where they are bought out. And so until you take the money out of politics, it is always going to be nonsense. And so going back to the gist of all of this, in the same way that we somehow took a story from Georgia and connected it with what was happening in Louisiana, and connected it with what was happening in Alabama, tied that to the Supreme Court, and then had it reflect on what would happen in Texas, and somehow tied it to Wisconsin, all of this crap is connected. And so when I say follow the money, all of this is rooted in money. If people didn't have anything to gain, a lot of folks wouldn't go into politics. Like, that's really where it's at. And I'm not talking about gain as far as ensuring that their community is well, ensuring that the schools are properly funded, ensuring that there's, an adequate amount of hospitals in all the different wards in all the cities. I'm talking about making sure that they get what they want in regards to, I don't like that they're trying to put the rules on Wall Street. So let me just run for office to make sure they can't ever regulate Wall Street. Let me make sure they can't regulate the banks. And this is why, even when we had, the first, well, not the first recession, we've had a ton of them, but when we had the big recession in 08, 07, 08, right? Look at the bailouts that were there. There's money in that conversation. Did it technically save the economy? Yes. At the same time, who ended up having to pay for it? The average everyday consumer. The middle class had to bail out the banks, had to bail out the airlines, had to bail out the auto industry, which is fine. But then look at what these companies did when they got the money. They had bonuses for everybody. Look at what happened in 2020. We had the pandemic. Airlines are one step from going under because, now the flights are $10. You can book a flight for $50 from DC to freaking Frankfurt, Kentucky, right? And then you give all this money to the airlines. And what do the airlines do? They give bonuses out and then lay off their employees. Like, this is what we're talking about. So understand, when I say that the money in politics is on some BS, like, that's what we're talking about. Like, all of this crap is tied together. So please, when people sit on this internet or come to my social media and rant about, I don't know, we voted for, why you always telling all the people to vote? Like, understand, the idea of sitting out and not participating is how we got half these people in these positions to begin with. on top of the fact there was already the disenfranchisement. It's not saying that you have to marry whoever you vote for, but it's just saying in this moment, this is the person that I think makes the most logical sense. You don't have to like the candidate. I don't like a lot of the people I vote for. If y'all know, when we came into this, when it got down to 2020, I was pissed when it came time to vote because I ain't like either candidate. But I was like, okay, I need to be realistic here, right? Like, dang, this is some BS. But understand, like, pay attention to what is happening locally, especially with, again, that elected sheriff. Again, a state that has a mortality rate that's twice the national average in that specific region when you're talking about state prisons. And that person who's been running those state prisons and allowing that to happen is up for re-election. Like, pay it. That's Louisiana. So let me say his name again, just so y'all remember. Look at my notes, because I'm just in case Louisiana, because y'all do not need to be getting behind him. Because again, who knows? Sheriff Sid Gertrude, that dude. Okay, again, twice the national average of deaths in his prison, and he's running for re-election. So, like, again, you're gonna have to pay attention to what's happening. Know what I mean? Okay, I have said a lot. I'm gonna pause and go to some comments here. All right. Actually, I think there's one more thing I want to share before I switch gears. Yes, one thing I did want to say too. So going back to Georgia, right, and the conversation about the heirs land and how we've literally seen like 15 million acres of land like get snatched up, right? So I did want to read this bit here. So over the course of the 20th century, however, that number has dropped. I'm sorry. At one point in time, Black Americans represented 14% of the farms in America. That also included land, right? Now, over the course of the 20th century, however, that number dropped drastically. Millions of farmers of all races were pushed off their land in the early part of the 20th century, including around 600,000 Black farmers. 600,000 Black farmers. By 1975, just 45,000 Black-owned farms remained. Now, that's 1975. I can tell you right now, the number's not even that high in modern times. It was almost as if Earth was opening up and swallowing Black farmers. Rights scholar Pete Daniel, in his book, Dispossession, Discrimination Against African-American Farmers in the Age of Civil Rights. Implicit in the decline of Black farming was the loss of land those farmers once tilled. Today, African Americans compose less than 2% of the nation's farmers and 1% of rural landowners. Right? We talked about this before. Many factors contributed to the loss of Black-owned land during the 20th century, including systemic discrimination in lending by, again, USDA. We talked about that, and go to one of my videos. Just type in Calvin Michaels USDA farm Black farmers. There's a ton of videos on it. The industrialization that lured workers into factories and the Great Migration, but lesser known issues of heirs property also played a role. Again, when we're talking about what you're seeing happening on the island in Georgia right now, a lot of that is also going to be a situation of heirs property as well. And we've talked about what happens when you have large plots of land where it's heirs property. Actually, I'm going to read the article while I'm talking at the same time. By one estimate, 81% of these early Black landowners did not make wills, largely due to a lack of access to legal resources. This is pretty much what spearheaded and jetted us into the conversation of heirs property. Their descendants then inherited the land without a clear title, and it thereby became designated as heirs property. Although heirs property exists in many regions of the country, it's most prevalent in low-income communities. In the South, according to one estimate, more than 50% of heirs property owners are African American, many of them descendants of slaves and sharecroppers. The Center for Heirs Property Preservation, based in Charleston County, South Carolina, estimates that there are 105,000 acres of heirs property in its 15-county service area. Without a clear title, heirs property owners are limited in what they can do with their land. And we've talked about that before. So with that land, the land can only exist as is. You cannot open any businesses that will affect commerce. Commerce has to exist as it already is. So meaning, if you go back to when the original landowner had that land and they had a store on that land, sure, if that store is still in operation, it can still run. Now, you can't do any major renovations or anything like that to it, but it can still run. Now, if you're somebody who, that original landowner passes on and the next family members come in and maybe they want to open a sister business next door, they want to open a restaurant. The answer is no, because again, you don't have a clear title to the land. The land must exist as is. So, hey, maybe you can sell some biscuits out of the store that you still have, but you can't open a whole restaurant. Absolutely not. You can't do any of that. Again, they do not qualify for FEMA when you have natural disasters. So if a hurricane, and again, this is a region that gets hit when you're talking about the Carolinas, tornadoes, hurricanes, depressions, and everything like that as far as storms, right? This stuff gets tore up. You're on your own. You don't get federal funding. You don't get FEMA money. You just have to figure it out yourself, right? And so even the streets, you don't even get the luxury to repave the streets. It's like you got to pull teeth, and that's something the city or the county has to manage. So again, that's the conversation of what happens with Heirs. So again, going way back to our Georgia conversation, by them all of a sudden, saying, okay, we're gonna change the maximum square footage of properties to 3,000. That allows new developers to come in, build these nice, grand, esteemed properties that are gonna retail for a whole lot of money, and they're gonna skyrocket the property taxes. Why? Because these areas are already kind of lived in, meaning again, because everything has to be as is. There's not a lot of development that can go into the area. So by coming in with people, by people coming in and developing, and they're developing land that is not heirs land because they own it, because they have a clear title, the property taxes are going to skyrocket. It's going to push people out. And that's why that article said most of the people that are there, give them 2 or 3 years, they're going to have to move on somewhere else. That's reality. That's life for folks. So like I said, it's important to not always just tap out. And I keep saying, because a lot of folks, I see people say, I'm over it. I don't care no more. We're going to be all right. No, we're not. We're not. It should not be our experience to always operate in chaos. Look at what we're living in right now. Every day is chaos. It always has been. But this is a special kind of chaos where it's just what the heck? I purposely have to not watch the news for 4 days out of the week just for my own peace of mind, because it's there's almost nothing good comes out, right? And so like I was saying, our experience should not be rooted in the nonsense that we're dealing with now. And like I said, the reason we're dealing with a lot of what we deal with now is there's so many people who they just go with the punch. We'll just figure it out. We're going to be all right. We're going to be good. Okay, I'm not trying to be good. I ain't trying to be all right. All right? So anyway, let us move to our comments. And like I said, voting is not the end all be all. That's just one step. It's an active process. It's an act of everything. It's just not, you don't vote and everything is magically fixed. It's just one piece of the puzzle, right? Here we are. Somebody said, yeah, that's where the TV show Gullah Gullah Island is kind of inspired from. Yes. Let me see. Somebody said, oh, 99. I remember finger waves with the black flat iron and the flip curl. I had pipeline ponytails, barrel curls, occasional highlight tracks for my Aaliyah swoop bangs. My mama used to rock some finger waves back in the day. Okay, my cousin said I said the island wrong. So it's Sapelo. Okay, Sapelo. Okay, not Sapelo. My bad. Sapelo. All right. The only one I be getting right is the Fuski Island. That's the only one I be saying right. All right. All right. Eric Williams said talent is blocking them. I think that's about wait, time out. They're showing commercials on the live. You guys are seeing ads during the live. I'm talking and it's turning off and going to an ad. That's new. Listen, when it comes to the ads, I ain't got nothing to do with it. All I do is when I upload, I click monetize and they run what they run. But the ads should not be showing during the live. That's supposed to show once the re-upload comes in, unless YouTube changed the rules. So I'm going to have to double check that. I don't know what that's about. So my bad if ads are cutting me off. I didn't know about that. YouTube is tripping. Okay, whatever. All right. Okay, cousin saying the governor is not going to allow everything to happen with the people on the island in Georgia. So that would be good if they do that. Okay, let me see. Baby Love 14 said, more good candidates need to run and more people have to vote. Voting is very important and all elections are important. And the challenge, man, the reason I keep saying money has to come out of politics, there are really good candidates that have great vision, great ideas, but they never make it to the main stage because they don't have enough. They don't make enough. They don't bring in enough revenue to even get in the door. Even look at the rules with as well, the debates, right? So in order to even get on the debate stage, sometimes I know for the RNC, their rule is you had to have a certain amount of donors in order to even get on the debate stage. So the one dude who I do not support, the black dude that's running, He's been pissed off because he can't ever make it to the debate stage because he doesn't have enough donors coming in. Like, well, good luck. But, again, that money in politics is something serious. So you have a lot of really great candidates who we never see because they can't compete with the big money machines, folks, right? Like, understand, when the initial little opportunity to get on the presidential ballot comes out, there are tons of people who run, people we will never hear of, right? Crazy. The ones we hear of are the people that are normally backed or come from some element of money. Hey, Bibby said, no concern for life, just looking to keep the money flowing. Exactly. That's exactly what that's about. Let's see. I'm gonna have to figure out this ad thing. I didn't realize they were doing it while I was talking. That's never happened before. Whatever, YouTube, y'all be on it. All right. Tyler Hackner says Supreme Court saying corporations are people too led to this. Yep, you talk about late 2010s when that was all of a sudden decided that corporations had a vote. They were people too. And so the corporations had rights. We've seen a lot of nonsense with that, right? All right. I'm going to keep going because I have so much to still cover. Larry Elder, that was his name. Yeah, he's some of these folks are so disappointing. They really are. And Larry Elder is interesting because he knows that there's certain talking points he can say that actually makes sense, but then everything else makes no. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, because he's not for no reparations. He ain't for a lot of stuff, but he knows how to play the game. He knows what word salad he can use, right? He knows what he can jump into back and forth. But speaking of folks who sometimes need to chill, oh, y'all are saying there is an ad that's coming on. Okay. Interesting. Connie, yes, you did miss the Kirk Franklin discussion, but it's when it re-uploads, I think Kirk Franklin was the second story I talk about. And like I said, I put timestamps on this live once it re-uploads sometime tomorrow. Like, let me go to bed. I'm not going to be sitting here waiting for the live. Because what happens is, it uploads or you get off the live. If you have the link, you can access it, but it doesn't populate into YouTube's algorithm until maybe an hour or two after the live is closed, as far as being able to search and find it. And then the actual live chat, I think, appears maybe about an hour or two later. And then by then, I think by the time I normally get up the next day, then I go ahead and I'll do the timestamps probably like midday tomorrow. Anyway, Jay Norvell, I think I said his name right. Now, this is the coach. Now, mind you, I already got my opinions on Deion Sanders, but I found Jay Norvell very, very interesting with the nonsense he said, right? Let me go to my phone. So he... it's so funny. Folks be fighting so hard to get into some of these spaces, and I'm like, why? Like, what certificate do you think you're gonna get? So anyway, he had his opinions on. Now he's the coach for Colorado. I want to say State, right? And he's talking about Deion Sanders. So understand, when Deion switched and left Jackson and went to Colorado, understand that it's not being said out loud, but a lot of these white coaches and white owners and everybody else, they don't want him in that space anyway. They feel like he's going to black it up a little too much for their liking. They don't like his ego. They don't like that he's confident. They don't like any of that. And again, that idea of trying to humble us and put us in our place, that's always been a thing. That's why you saw what happened with NFL players when they were afraid to take a knee and everything. Like, people love to try to regulate and put us in our place or remind us how we should be. So then you have Jay Norvell, who is black, right, coach, and he had this quote. He said, I don't care if they hear it in Boulder. I told them I took my hat and my glasses off. I said, when I talk to grown-ups, I take my hat off. And let me read this back. I don't care if they hear it in Boulder. I told them I took my hat off and I took my glasses off. I said, when I talk to grown-ups, I take my hat off and my glasses off. That's what my mother taught me. Like, okay, whatever. Long story short, this is him trying to pretty much low-key get a white appreciation certificate, pretty much letting everybody know that, yes, there's another black man in this space, but I'm not like that one. So I'm going to be okay. I'm one of the good ones. So you guys can continue to trust in me. I'm not going to mess it up like what Deion's going to do. That's pretty much coded language, okay? Because understand, when black people get into some of these spaces, they love to boy and son you all the time. Real quick. They are so quick to try to put you in that boat. And so understand, because there are a ton of white coaches that wear them hats and them shades, especially them shades that connect with the little strap in the back. Oh, there's tons of white coaches at these, D1 teams that have press conferences and wear their hats and they chew that gum during a press conference. Yep, yeah, my players, I do what they want. I bet you he will never say anything to any of them about decorum or how to carry himself, right? And so, again, what it is, to me, he represents somebody who gets into one of these spaces and wants to close the door behind him. That's really what that is about, right? And what I found so funny, though, because then Deion Sanders is the king of petty. He's like, oh, I'm going to show y'all. So he gifted his entire team some shades. I fell out. I was like, okay, all right, that was funny. But no, he talked all that trash. And mind you, like from when I was looking at the stats, he's not even really like a winning coach. He has a very average season where, you got about the same amount of wins as you do losses. So it's like, maybe you should focus on actually working and running your team. But it's just interesting. Like, you constantly get these folks who come into these spaces and they are so quick to sell out themselves or their community or anybody who relatively has any association with blackness to try to appear to be above or to appear to be different. I'm unique. I'm special. Like, they always do that, right? Because at the end of the day, whatever critique you may have, I know. Okay, now I see what you guys are talking about. It says there's an ad. Hold on, we're not doing this. Maybe I think I just turned it off. YouTube is doing the most. But anyway, with that being said, yeah, there's all these folks that always will sit here and break their backs to come and like tear down, whatever progress somebody else is making because they want to make sure they got the door. Like, folks get in the door and close behind them. They don't want anybody else in there. Like, have you ever gotten to a job and maybe you might be one of the few black people in there and you meet one of the black people in the job, but they act real weird. They act real funny. They do that kind of like, what are you doing here? They got that, like that, what are you doing here energy? You gonna mess this up for me. Like, they got that kind of energy. Like, that's kind of like what I'm getting with Jay. Because again, you can have your critiques about the program or the coaching or the sport, but him wearing his hat and his shades ain't got nothing to do with college football. Absolutely not. Like, get out of here. And so, I'm just like, nonsense, which is actually going to lead me to my next bit, because now I want to light up Tim Scott as well. So as you know, we have, you have the big three companies right now striking in regards to the auto industry. So you have like I'm sorry, is it UAW strike? I want to make sure I'm saying it right because I don't want to mess up nothing. But you have these big old giant strikes, right? And they are asking for what they're asking for, right? And did I write something down? I just want to make sure I got everything right. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. UAW, sorry, my bad. So you have the UAW strike, right? And they're asking for a bunch of different things. Long story short, the auto industry has been having like record revenue for like the last 6 years, right? The CEOs are getting raises, 30, 40% raises and bonuses and gifts and this, that, and the third. And so the strikers or the people that are striking are saying, like, listen, hey, we're not getting paid the adequate amount that we should be getting. Like, we're demanding, they want a specific raise. They want adjustments with the benefits. There's a lot of things. And this is not just limited to them, because we've seen it across the board. Like, you have the writer's strike, right? You have the actor's strike. You had, which I was very disappointed with the results, but even when you had the rail workers strikes with the trains and everything like that, and they were literally fighting for what? An extra day of sick leave. And that was a problem. Understand, so many companies and corporations have gotten away with nickel and diming their workers, literally working people to the bone, working people to the death, and people barely have anything to show for it. And these companies will go and spend lavishly on their executives, make horrible investments on things that kind of work against the worker. Then when the money is funny, now they want to pull the pensions. Well, we got to stay afloat, so we're going to pull y'all pensions. Like, this is all kind of things. When you look at like what happened in Flint back in the day, when all the factories closed up shop and started, outsourcing and everything, all of that was corporate greed. All of that was at the expense of, again, the worker, the consumer, the working class, right? People who made these companies what they were. And then when people realize you can make more money if you could get cheap labor, or you do this and you do that and you outsource everything, you watch Flint, which was at one point a booming city, right, turn into what it is now. You watch what happened with Detroit. Detroit, in my opinion, is on its way back. Detroit is trying, but you saw what happened in Detroit. And when you talk about a lot of the industrial cities we've had in the United States, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, what's another good example? Richmond is pretty industrial. Rochester, Buffalo, Gary, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Camden, New Jersey, Richmond is going through a shift too, but like all these places that were once industrial cities, booming cities, great economies, stuff to do, execs started pulling out because they found cheaper ways to exploit labor and make a bunch of money. And then the economies in a lot of these cities crashed. The economies just kind of went under. Factories closed. Jobs were lost. Understand that once the jobs are lost and the economy slows, people stop spending money. People have to move. People get foreclosed on. People leave the area. Now there's less property taxes to go around. Less property taxes to go around. In addition to the fact that the values of properties have continued to go down and go down, that means less money to go into the schools. Now there's less money going into the schools. Teachers are not getting paid what they want to get paid. So they leave and they go to districts that are going to pay more. The schools start to underperform. Now the schools start losing funding and everything else like that. Now you start closing schools. In addition to the fact now we're opening magnet schools, we're opening charter schools, we're opening private schools. And so the school district becomes what it is. Once you start losing the schools, you kind of lose that element and that sense of community. So as the community starts to go down, there's more disinvestment in the area. Nobody's opening any restaurants in this part of town because there's nothing over here going on anyway. Nobody here really works and has, these great jobs that have a pension and a retirement plan and social security and bonuses. And so there's no point in opening an upscale restaurant here because the people here can't afford. When you start talking about outlining the budget for the year, well, let's make some cuts. We're going to cut the bus route to this side of town. Maybe there's still going to be a bus coming there, but there's not going to be 3 buses going anymore because what's the point going over there? So now there's only 1 bus route. Now the residents in that area, what happens when you cut the bus route? That affects people trying to get to work with the few jobs that they can get. So now, their options for getting to work have changed or have been compromised. Like the way that this all works full circle. And so what was so disappointing but expected, Tim Scott's dusty behind. The same Tim Scott who has done all this shucking and driving. Well, I would say he's driving the train of the shucking and jiving folks, right? So he's done all this shucking and jiving, doing everything in his power to win over this white vote that he is not going to get, right? He's jumped on every conservative talking point you can latch on to about family values and this, that, and the third. And of course, reparations and America's not a racist country and all this other stuff and so on and so forth. And of course, he gives his opinion on the strike. I'm just going to play the audio and then we will talk. All right. Let me start him back over. He's on some nonsense.
One of my buddies, prayer partner of mine, spent his entire career without a...
Hold on, pause. He tried to tell him a prayer partner of mine. They be up here just lying. You ain't doing nobody's praying.
Prayer partner of mine spent his entire career without a college degree working at Nucor Steel. And their pay structure took him over 6 figures, several years, because he got paid for his work. The harder he worked, not only did he get luckier, they got more money. And that's a recipe, it's a formula that we should be using all across the country, not just in South Carolina, but all across the nation. And we're watching today, on every screen around the country, we're seeing the UAW fight for more benefits and less hours working, more pay and fewer days on the job. It's a disconnect from work, and we have to find a way to encourage and inspire people to go back to work. And that's one of the things that, as your president, we would have a nationwide see the shining seed focus on you pick the type of work, but if you're able-bodied, you're going to work.
Okay, whatever. All right, so let's dissect that, shall we? First of all, again, full of crap. He's already, like I said, he's going to do everything he can do to win over white voters because, again, he does not have their support at all right now. Like I said, and I've said this before, as a black individual, when you latch onto anti-blackness and try to align with white supremacy to climb up, oh, sure, you will get to climb. But again, as you climb up, you always hear the phrase of glass ceiling and this, glass ceiling, because you can break it and press through. Negro, you ain't getting that far, okay? I used to always say a cement ceiling, but I don't even think it's cement. It's like cement and some steel on top of that. So all you do is you accelerate to that ceiling faster, but they're never going to let you get past it. And so when you're talking about his chances of trying to become, the president or the GOP nominee, it's not happening. The leverage he might get is one of these other people become the nominee and he becomes their vice president. He'll take it, I'm sure. But him by himself, white America is not getting behind him unless they have to, because at the end of the day, whiteness is still whiteness. They would rather have one of their own do it. A lot of times, folks like that, they work as a mouthpiece for white supremacy. And yes, they get perks, they get benefits, they get celebrated. A lot of times when you see some of these really stupid talking points on social media, when you look at the comments, you see a lot of white folks like, oh, this guy gets it. He's so smart. Oh, if all the rest of them were like you, we would be great. And again, it's because you're speaking their language. You're telling them what they want to hear. But again, so he's talking, oh, my prayer partner and I, okay, and now you so deep, y'all getting up for prayer every morning, okay, whatever. But understand that what's happening with the worker strike as far as the auto industry, that is reflective of everything happening across the country as a whole. It's just not limited there. And so when you really jump into it, so he gives this story about the guy who, worked really hard and got to six figures. The conversation of working hard is some BS at this point, because the poorest people in this country are the hardest workers, right? Understand. And for somebody who's in Congress, where y'all go to recess every other month, every single time there's some crucial legislation that needs to be voted on, y'all want to go to recess and go to vacation and go to whatever. Or you can't pass a budget. So here we go again. It's about to be possibly a shutdown, not because y'all can't agree on the budget, but because y'all have let politics get in the way of things. And there's a bunch of stupid things on the list that you want everybody to kind of cave to that have nothing to do with the budget, right? And so, again, anybody in Congress, I don't want to hear anything about working hard, because they do the bare minimum and make all kind of money, make big money, right? They get to sit around, walk out of sessions, get pissed off if they don't like what somebody said, find somebody and put them and say they're out of order, and now they got to get dismissed from the chambers. Like, they're full of crap. It's to the point where, think of all the times Mitch McConnell did not bring something to a vote just because he said so. I'm not going to bring it to a vote. The Democrats they've lost their minds if they think people should have free health. Like, they just all the time, I'm not going to bring it to a vote. No, I'm not voting on that. So when you think of all the policy that came out in 2020, especially when we were in a pandemic, the idea of what they had tried to push in regard to ensuring that voting rights were protected. It was folks were like, we're not even going to bring it to a vote. Don't even bring it to my table. It will not come through the Senate. Like, that's how they're moving. But you want to sit here and talk about working hard, right? And then he is speaking from a standpoint of the old guard in regard to the workers industry in the United States, right? The idea of working hard does not get you six figures in just any capacity because you worked harder. Because a lot of times these companies are nickel and diming their employees all the time. How many times have you gone and you've been job hunting and you see a position and it's like, oh, master's degree required or master's degree required, right? And it's like, okay, and mind you, a master's degree usually is not free unless you've gotten some really great funding. So here's some person who's probably spent upwards of $100,000 trying to get a master's degree on top of what they already got from their bachelor's. And then when you look at the salary, it's $45,000 in New York, in DC, in LA, in San Francisco, in Austin, Texas, all these places that are super expensive now, right? $45,000, master's degree required, right? And so again, so much has changed. And so they love to push this narrative that people just aren't working hard enough. But when you look at the discrepancy between CEOs and the workers, how much it has grown after Reaganomics. Listen, once Reagan came up in there and started deregulating stuff, like I told y'all, his first year, the first thing he did was gutted 80 programs right away. Year one, cut. Even cut the food program for the kids. Y'all better bring your own sandwich from home. Lost your minds. Because remember, school lunches before the 80s actually were a lot better than what they are now. Them kids used to get some nice meals, right? Some schools still do if you got some money. But again, Reagan did all that deregulation, and then you started watching the average CEO salary skyrocket and not even be in any kind of correlation with the average worker. Salaries are stagnant and have been since the Reagan era, if we're being honest, right? You look at minimum wage, where it's at, it's stagnant. And I know some people are always like, we can't raise the minimum wage because small businesses are going to struggle. But look at everything that's around us. Look at how high housing is. The average house right now is upwards of $400,000. And that's not in metropolitan cities. That's in the rural areas. Okay, you start going to the DCs, the Atlantas, even Houston at this point is getting high, right? Homes are $600,000 and $700,000, and people that are on salaries of $50,000 or $60,000 or a combined household of maybe 80 or 90 still can't afford that, right? And so much has changed. And what happens is they love to use this talking point where they talk about the United States of the 1950s, the United States of the early 60s, when the tax codes were still different, when the wealthy paid a whole lot more in taxes. I think by that point, the tax rate for like super wealthy was about 70%. It used to be 90, and it got chopped down to about 70%, right? And so, a lot of that money went into infrastructure, went into a bunch of different things, helped to keep the economy and everything flowing. Everybody could eat. Yeah, you had to pay a whole lot in taxes, but you were rich. You weren't hurting. You were still way above everybody else. But everybody loves to hold on to that old guard. Hold on to the old guard of when houses were still $30,000. Hold on to the old guard of, tuition for a state college was, a few $100s a year. Like, they latch onto that and then try to measure it against the experience of people in 2023. The reason all these people are protesting is like, hey, our wages haven't really gone up. We're struggling here trying to take care of our households. And I'm watching the CEO get a raise of 35%. I think it was GW, the CEO, that's the lady. And when I watched the interview and the journalist was saying like, hey, you gave yourself a raise or your board gave you a raise of 35%. You know, is it too much to ask for your employees? You know, they want 41%. And she was saying, well, we gave them 25% and the option for, you know, the I forgot what you call it. It's not the 401k, but it's when they do like the dump, like they do like an annual dump of money to kind of match whatever you put into what would be kind of like a 401k. She was like, yeah, that's that. And she kind of started talking about performance. And I'm like, but as a CEO, the only reason your company is having a great performance is because of your workers. You ain't doing nothing. You get to go to the meetings and shake hands and take pictures. Like in most companies, CEOs ain't doing that much work. The higher you go, the less work most of these people have to do. Yeah, they have important roles, they have major titles, but the gruesome groundwork, I mean, listen, think about a lot of the boomers and the older Gen Xers who have all of these health complications in their 60s and 70s and 80s. Not because they didn't take care of themselves, but because they worked on assembly lines, because they had to do manual labor for 40 years. And a lot of them had to also work in environments before there were new regulations on how the workplace safety would be kind of implemented, right? A lot of people who ended up dying years down the line because they worked in factories that had chemicals. I am 100% convinced that, because I know scleroderma is something that's triggered, I am convinced that my father got scleroderma from working in them warehouses back in the day. Like, so just think of like that experience for all those people. And so when y'all sit here and try to dismiss their experience just because you may not value their work as important and say, well, they're just not working hard enough, it's BS. Tim Scott can shut up on that. Like they always say this crap about working hard. Again, go to some of the poorest neighborhoods in all of America and you will find the hardest working people ever. The hardest. But again, we've gotten into this space where, you know, there's a lot of people who don't even make livable wages, and then they're criticized because they're saying, hey, this just does not add up. And so to sit here and have the nerve to run for president in a country that's already on the decline, let's be honest, the U.S. is on a decline. It'd be very interesting to see where the United States stands in like 20 years when you measure up against China or some of these other powers, and especially with some of these other countries coming together and trying to come up with new currencies. It'd be very interesting to see where we're at. But a country that is currently in decline, where the people are underpaid, healthcare is just ridiculously expensive, right? I just had to take one of my friends to the ER Friday, and I was like, "Oh God, I can imagine that bill." Like I had to take them because they're like, don't call it. I don't want an ambulance. Come get me." Like, right? That's the reality for people. Like insurance, health insurance is ridiculously high, even when you have it attached with your employer. The average rate for a car payment right now is $700. Okay, $700 for a car a few years ago would have been for a luxury car. Now this is just for a Honda. This is just for a Kia, right? And I'm not saying those are bad cars, but like, look where we're at, you know. And so what's interesting, you know, 75% of Americans polled that were polled are in support of a lot of these strikes. And so to be so tone deaf and then try to give some random narrative about some prayer partner who worked hard and they made 600,000. If that's the case, everybody would be making hundreds of thousands of dollars if they worked hard. Everybody, half of y'all on here right now got to get up in the morning, tired, cussing me out because I'm still on this live talking too long and you got to get up early to go to work, right? And go to a work where you got to deal with some people that are going to be disrespectful. They're going to put a million things on your plate and you're not even getting paid what you should get paid. All right. If you listen to my podcast, I told y'all how much I initially started making when I was running a community center. That should be a crime. How does the person who had the #1 community center in all of America in 2018, 2019, and 2021 make that little bit of money? I mean, fortunately, you got a little bit higher as years down the line. But again, that's reality. And it's not saying that, people, we should judge people based on how much they make or what they get. But there's such a disconnect. Like you're in Congress and y'all go to recess, like get out of here. And there's another clip I want to play because again, it just goes to show like a lot of these people up top have these very warped views of the working class, right? And workers. So I want to go to this guy who's some billionaire property developer named Tim Gurner. All right. Let me play this nonsense he said because it just goes back to show like, man. All right, let's see.
I think the problem that we've had is that we have people decided they didn't really want to work so much anymore through COVID, and that has had a massive issue on productivity. Tradies have definitely pulled back on productivity. They have been paid a lot to do not too much in the last few years, and we need to see that change. We need to see unemployment rise. Unemployment has to jump 40-50% in my view. We need to see pain in the economy. We need to remind people that they work for the employer, not the other way around. I mean, there's been a systematic change where employees feel the employer is extremely lucky to have them, as opposed to the other way around. So
I'm gonna stop him right there so he get cussed out for. Oh, so again, oh, you guys couldn't hear it. Okay, well, long story short, I'm sorry you couldn't hear it. Long story. Let me hold on. Does this have captions on it? Okay, he says, I think the problem that we have is that people decided they didn't really want to. I'm waiting for the captions. He talks slow. Work. So we had this massive issue on productivity. Tradies have definitely pulled back on productivity. They paid a lot they get paid a lot to not do much in the last few years, and we need to see that change. We need to see unemployment rise. We need to see unemployment jump to 40 to 50%, in my view. We need to see pain in the economy. We need to remind people that they work for the employer, not the other way around. There's been a systemic change where employees feel that the employer is extremely lucky to have them, as opposed to the other way around. So that's pretty much what he said. So first of all, again, that conversation, like, this is what we're talking about when I say you have so many people up top who just are so removed from reality, because at the end of the day, the majority of people in America, in the United States, are not CEOs. The majority of people in the United States are not executive VPs. The majority of people in the United States are not the executives of boards. They are the workers. And so, no, you have it wrong. The employers are lucky to have the workers, because when the workers say we ain't doing this BS no more, that's it. You know what I mean? So understand, a lot of these folks have gotten into such a space where they're so used to us just being in a subservient position where we're supposed to just do whatever and be happy to be in a room, that they think they can manipulate and they take advantage of folks, lowball people, not pay people anything. And then get mad when the people say, hey, well, you keep giving yourself a raise every year and you riding in yachts and everything else like that. And now I'm in some predicament where I have a child who has a health condition, but the company insurance does not cover that condition. And if I try to apply somewhere else or do something else, you know, I still don't get the kind of coverage I need. Or even if I have the coverage, you don't even want to give me enough time off to go and make sure my child is good. I got to determine whether or not I'm going to sit through my child's surgery or come into work, and then somehow still be focused enough on work while somebody's cutting my child open, right? Like, that's reality. And so you have so many of these people who, especially these billionaires, like, that's why I'm so glad we've gotten into a space where people are finally not kissing the behinds of billionaires anymore, because the more that they speak, the more we're learning how stupid they are, especially Elon Musk. It's so crazy, because when Elon took over Twitter and you watched him come in there with that toilet, it was interesting to see like all the employees, and they're all like, yeah, Elon, yeah. And he's coming in with the toilet, yeah, bro. And then he laid all of them up, everybody gone, right? Cut like 80% of that workforce, right? Now all of a sudden everybody thinks he's the scum of the earth. And it's like, we've been telling y'all that for the longest. But again, people spend so much time worshiping the wealth of other people. They think that just because people are wealthy, they are the most in tune with what society needs. And that's why we've had so many super wealthy people end up running for office. Not because they care about the people, but it's about inflated ego. It's about them feeling some kind of way, or again, them protecting their assets. If you really think somebody like a Donald Trump initially ran for the United States presidency because he cared about the people, okay. Same thing with Bloomberg. Same thing with a lot of these folks who are super wealthy and everything else like that. Or even the idea of, again, Elon said, I'm just going to take over Twitter. Like, why? You already had all the money in the world. What did you possibly want Twitter for? And now we realize, okay, he kind of wants to regulate the conversations that take place around his special interests, things that affect his commerce, his businesses. So yeah, let's all of a sudden restructure Twitter and talk about it was about free speech. Free speech was under attack. And meanwhile, they over here kicking everybody off the platform. So again, like, there is a disconnect. So for Tim Scott, who's already about 0 for 56 with white people, and mind you, now they all of a sudden too, they the whole narrative of, oh, well, he's not married, we're concerned. Y'all ain't concerned, you're just bad, he black, and you don't want him in there or whatever. But you know, now that's a big thing. And now all of a sudden he's calling on people to support him to have, you know, the agency to do what he wants. And now he's talking about, you know, he's been dating a young Christian girl for years. First of all, none of that is anybody's business to begin with. But again, they're reminding you that you're black, but you're so stupid, you're sitting here trying to play into it, thinking this is about politics. Like, my God, how embarrassing. Between you and Clarence Thomas and Candace and some of these other ones, I'd be like, what are y'all doing? You know, I get it. It's fine to have your viewpoints on how to do things, but why always latch onto everything that's to the detriment of other people or to the detriment of black people, and then try to pretend black people are stupid for being pissed off about it? It's kind of like when people always say, like, as a response to a lot of like conservative policy that's aimed at, to me, in my opinion, kind of disenfranchising black people. oh no, y'all are just being emotional. Like y'all just need to be, you need to be practical here. And I'm like, if we want to talk about which group of people is emotional, it's the people that went and stormed the Capitol. It's the people that go and put 50 pieces of legislation on the docket because they didn't win their election in 1991 and they want everybody else to suffer. Right? Like that's what I'm talking about. So that's some nonsense. I'm gonna pause and read some comments because we've covered a lot. And then I think that's my last heavy story. And then I'm gonna get back to some of these celebrity related ones and we'll call it a night. I was trying to make sure we were not on here for 3 hours tonight. All right. All right. Let's see here. Talking about working hard. You just gotta work hard. That pisses me off. Like, I just know so many people who have literally worked themselves to death and died with nothing, right? And to always vilify people and kind of paint the situation of you're poor because you're lazy or you're poor because you don't work hard. I think a lot of those talking points came from the Reagan era, to be honest. Like the whole pull yourself up out of bootstraps, that's his era. You know, when they started cutting all the programs and they were catching a bunch of smoke, they were like, well, people just need to work harder, right? Even when you had, you know, the air traffic controllers having a strike and he was like, y'all got 48 hours to get back to work or all of y'all are fired. You know, you don't want to work, you don't get paid. Like that kind of narrative has come into a space where now, you know, you have, you always hear the conversation of like proletarian versus bourgeoisie, right? You have that conversation where now like your proletarians or the people that are the working class or the people that build and keep the economy going have been gutted and stripped so many times from everything that if you don't have a luck of the draw or you already don't come from money, it's very hard to climb up. There's a reason why people tend to stay in the same socioeconomic bubble as their parents a lot of times, just because it's very hard to move upward in the United States, especially as a Black person, especially when you got policy and everything working against you. You know, you finally, I don't know, you're a Black woman that has a company and finally you find out there's a grant for $20,000 specifically for Black business owners by this wonderful venture capitalist company that wants to ensure that Black, you know, businesses have an opportunity. And then boom, here comes Edward Blum saying, absolutely not. You know, that's not fair. And they're going to sue. Like, that's what I'm talking about. I really want to find this article I was talking about because there were some numbers on here. I'm going to find it while I'm looking for this. I really want to find it because, man, come on. I really want to find it. But freaking mess. All right, it definitely was not in August. Anyway, I'm going to read the chat while we do this at the same time. Yeah, Clarence Thomas. Dania said, and then set up there and lost. Exactly. So coach talked all that trash about Dion and then lost the game. Talking all that trash. I'm talking lose. Like, man. Somebody said Tim Scott and Larry Elder are the same. And here's my thing. I don't, well, I do have a beef, but I don't 100% give daggers to Black folks that run as Republicans. If you want to latch onto the thing, oh, we're conservative family values, which I think is some BS, because most of the people that get caught up with the scandals and stuff that are Republican always talk about family values, but then be out here stepping out and sleeping with children and all other kind of stuff. I don't buy it. But it's like, if you're going to go that route, why still latch onto everything that, again, disenfranchises the very collective in which you come from? It would be one thing if you ran as a Republican to infiltrate and kind of switch up things so they couldn't continue to do some of the things they do, and then you make the party kind of go through a shift. But no, they get right in there and play the role, be jumping higher than the people doing the nonsense. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, man, I really want to find this freaking thing I wrote. Oh, God, where is it at? I wasn't planning to talk about it on the live, so I don't. Found it. Okay, so again, going back to Edward Blum and him suing that Black company that was giving the $20,000 to business owners. Some numbers here, right? So the company is called Fearless. That's the company that's being sued by Edward Blum. You know, he's saying it's racist to specifically target Black women business owners because what about the white women and what about everybody else? Understand that before Fearless, which is the company, even became an operation, Black business owners, specifically women, were 0.0006% of all money that came in through venture capitalism for businesses. 0.0006%. That's not a 1%. That's under the 1%. 0.0006%. That's how much they got. And now you're suing, right? And with Fearless, they were able to get that number from 0.0006% to 0.039%. It's still only of 1%. But again, like, 0.39% of 1% is still not a whole lot. But that little tiny bit that they're getting is a problem. So now this too is about to go to the Supreme Court. Make it make sense. Need to just start throwing hands. I'm at just everybody just start throwing hands at this point. Like, man. I'm gonna have to figure out what's going on with YouTube in this stream. They pissing me off with this. They need to go back to whatever they were doing before that. Oh, and then also to that point with Tim Scott, where he was talking about, and they want to work less for more. No, they just wanted to shift to the 4-day work week. They were still going to do the same amount of work. You just cut 2 hours off the other 4 days, or off the 5th day, and add it to the other 4. But no, they like to play these stupid word games, and everybody's just at home sleeping. It's the same thing with even the remote conversations, because it's real irritating. Like, the reason there's such a push to make everybody go back to the office is it's conversations of real estate, it's conversations of commerce, and they're trying to paint the narrative of, people aren't working hard enough at home, the productivity is going down, we got to get everybody back in the office, when in reality, productivity has been up once people had the luxury to work from home. Why? Because, hey, you don't have to get up as early. You don't have to spend all the time trying to get dressed and get ready and then got to commute this way and drop the kids to daycare and everything else like that. People have a bit more agency to have some of the morning to themselves before they actually technically clock in. Understand, if you work a 9 to 5 and you have a commute that's 45 minutes away, you're probably getting up at least maybe 6:30, 7 o'clock, right? You're up 2 or 3 hours before you even have to clock in, as opposed to if you had the luxury to work from home, you can get up 30, 40 minutes before you need to clock in and already be refreshed and ready to work, right? And so they're painting this narrative that people aren't working, and it's too much going on. I'm like, y'all are so full of crap. And what's so horrible about it is, when these companies all started going remote once the pandemic hit, for a lot of people, that was God sent. That meant they didn't have to spend, $1,500-$1,600 a month on daycare, right? And now, and mind you, we also watched the GOP get rid of the child tax credit. That $300 may not sound like a lot a month for people, but for some folks, that was a lot. That helped a whole lot, right? And so you watched them gut that. But again, a lot of people had the luxury of not having to pay for daycare when they had the luxury to work remotely. A lot of people were able to find jobs that may not have necessarily even been in their neighborhood, because there might not be any work where they live, and they might have found jobs in other states that were like, oh yeah, this position is fully remote. So yeah, I work in Baltimore, or I live in Baltimore, but I work in Modesto, California, technically online. And so as these companies are all like, oh, you got 2 months, or you got 2 weeks to come back to the office. Now you have people who have to literally re-uproot their entire lives, have to figure out, how do we maneuver? How do we do this? How do we do that? And so it's just the way greed works. And they always put it on the worker. It's always the worker's fault. It's always something the worker was doing wrong. They ain't working hard enough. They over there relaxing too much, pissing people off. Like, it's some nonsense. So yeah, these people in charge all freaking suck. They A mess. All right. Let me see here. Oh yeah, that's a good point. Mitch McConnell really is Strom Thurmond 2.0. I forgot all about old Strom. Strom was terrible. Absolutely terrible. A Hill said you'd have to raise the minimum wage just so the middle class people can have a bottom. Because really, we really don't have a middle class. I was just looking at the stats for DC. So like in DC, to be considered middle class at this point, you have to at least make $80,000 a year, at least 80 to be considered middle class. And to be honest, $80,000 in DC is still a struggle, because the average rent for a 1-bedroom out here is like $3,100. So, $80,000 in DC is, 80,000 is a lot of money, but in DC it gets swallowed up. So it's just like, man, it's crazy out here. And I was thinking back to, like, there was a period in time where rent for some people was $300 and $400 a month, right? And that's back when people could make $30,000 and be perfectly fine making, $30,000 a month, and they pay $300 or $400 in rent and still got enough money for a car and everything else. Okay, that was called profit sharing. That's what it's called. Let me see here. Somebody said I'm gonna need some common meal. Let me get the water boiling. Yeah, I'm telling you, I'll be having my tea to bring my blood pressure down. All right. We're gonna keep going. Oh, look how stuff just be coming together. Because Baby Love said, Calvin, can you talk about Fearless Fun started by Keisha Knight? They're like, that's what we just covered. See how we just everything just be aligning, like we just be on the same page. Started by Keisha Knight, poem and the CEO, Orion Simone. They help Black women and other women of color get money to start their businesses. Yes, that's the venture capitalist company that was given. And mind you, $20,000 is not even a lot of money for a business, but it is seed money, right? They're doing what they can, right? So again, starting a business saying, because people say, well, Black folks, y'all complain too much, do something about it. Here's some Black folks that go and do something about it, and not just for themselves, but for people in their community that are also trying to build. Hey, we're going to give you these $20,000 grants so your business can grow. And then here comes Edward Blum's hating ass coming up here, man. Well, what about the white folks and everybody else? Like, y'all stay, like I said this on the last slide before. When I tell you white folks will snatch up everything, even when you don't have nothing, they want that too. They go, well, you don't got nothing. Well, we don't want, we want your nothing. Give it here. You ain't about to be over here sadder than us. Like, goodness, just miserable. Man. Edward Blum. We didn't talk about Edward Blum so much on this channel. Somebody drop his location. No, I'm just kidding. Man. All right. I'm over it. Everybody, get on my nerves, man. Get on my nerves. All right, we're gonna keep it moving because I got a few more things I want to cover. Yes, man, $3,500 for a one bedroom. One bedroom. I ain't gonna tell you how much I paid for this. I don't pay that much, but it's almost that, and it's going up in November. I was like, yeah, they're like, hey, rent's going up $300-400. I'm like, that much to live on this side of town? I ain't trying to be that person. I got junkies on the corner. Like I had to make friends with all the people that got the substance abuse problems on the corner, just so something go down. I got some backup on the side of the street. Like I'm that person that get along with everybody in the neighborhood, but it's a whole lot on my side of town. So what am I paying this much for? And I told y'all, I think a few lives ago, there was just a flood on the 14th floor where the water was in somebody's sprinkler went off and flooded the 14th floor, and it came down, and the people directly across from me got their apartment all ruined, and y'all want to hike up $300-400 for what? Man, get out of here. Anyway, okay. I'm going to be quick with this because I don't even want to spend too much time on it. So this whole thing with Offset, and I don't even, and Kenneth, I think Kenneth, that's his name. So as we know, you have Kenneth, that's Nicki Minaj's husband. You got Offset. He's with Cardi B. All I'm going to say is this. They got whatever little nonsense they got going, beef and drama, and folks drop your location, this, that, and the third. I ain't invested enough to care. But I will say this. We've already seen an influx where we've seen a whole lot of rappers get killed in the last few years, right? We've seen an instance where we've seen a whole lot of folks be victims to nonsense. And for me, what's frustrating watching that entire thing play out is both of them have children, right? So you would think that as a grown man with children, you're not letting some petty entertainment beef or whatever nonsense they have going get you to the point where you're willing to put your livelihood at stake, all because of ego, all because of social media clout, all because the world is watching and you don't want to look soft on TV. Like, there's enough going on, right? There's already too much stuff going on. And I've read, the background on Kenneth. Kenneth, you already got a lot going on. You already need to lay low. So why are you even in, man? And then I'm looking at Offset like, we just saw what happened with Takeoff. And then the two of y'all, whatever beef y'all got, and really, they don't have beef. This is just the end result of their wives having really, I don't even know if Cardi and Nicki really have beef. In my opinion, I know they don't really rock with each other. But to me, it more so seems like the public has just jumped into this so much. And then you have the egos that jump into the picture and folks start taking shots. And then other rappers get pulled in. And now you get Lotto who comes into the picture. And Meg is in the picture. And this rapper and this rapper. And before you know it, you got all these women in rap who apparently have beefs. Most of them don't even know what they're beefing about. They just beefing because somebody else said beef with this person, and this person was mad because this person's on that song with that person. We was talking about loyalty, and they got the diss tracks and whatever. I get it. It's hip hop. They've always had diss tracks, but when it gets to the point where now, y'all are talking about drop your location and everything else like that, or you bringing up the goons and this, that, and the third. Like, do y'all really want it to get this deep? Is it really this deep? And I think I get annoyed because, again, these are, well, maybe not Kenneth because he's not a rapper, but everybody else involved. Again, these are people who get the luxury to live the life they've always desired, where they get paid buku amounts of money to do something they like, just make music, right? Isn't that like, can you imagine? Like, you know, you just got to come out with some songs here and there, maybe do a little tour, you get some endorsements, you know, make people laugh on social media, and they just throw millions in your pocket, just throw millions at you. Just, you got it made. And here y'all out here beefing about what, right? And so I was like, I'm hoping whatever they got going, they just let that crap blow over. Because if they really let this get to something bigger where, again, you start seeing violence coming, because, again, we've seen so many rappers in the last handful of years end up being shot or killed. Or even if it's not rappers, people who have an association with rappers, whether it's security guards or people in the entourage. And I don't see, well, technically one of them didn't kill somebody before. But, you know, as far as Kenneth and Offset, like I was about to say, I don't really see either of them as those kind that are even going to do anything like that. But again, it's just like ego gets in the way so much with a lot of people, and they end up doing a lot of really stupid things, like just because of ego and who's watching. All eyes on the crowd. Like, just I just know if I was a celebrity. First of all, nobody really gets me that pissed off anyway. It's hard to piss me off to that point where I'm gonna just have that kind of smoke for you. If I don't rock with you, I just don't rock with you. And that's all it is to it. You'll see me in passing. I might speak, but I'm gonna be on my way. I'm not pressed to go and call up the crew and we gonna go come find you somewhere, because I'm not fighting. Like, I'm getting older. I ain't old, but I don't have the energy for it. But it's not that deep. I can't, right? Nonsense. So hopefully we'll see all of that slow down, and do not, and by the way, don't come on here in that Stan brigade where it's gonna be the Nicki folks in here trying to chew me out in the Cardi folks. When I tell you I'm not invested and I don't care, I don't even have either of their albums. I don't have a single Nicki album. I don't got a single Cardi one. I do like some of their music. They're not people I would ever particularly go and see on tour. They're not people that are my go-to for my playlist when I clean the house. I'm not that invested. All I am saying is, whatever beef and drama they got, do not let it get to the point where you're willing to compromise your livelihood and your way of living, all because of ego, especially because y'all have children, right? Whatever, you know, people are always going to talk trash and throw shots. It is what it is. But when it gets to a point where it becomes, you know, people are pulling up and trying to find locations, that's a problem. Sorry. And this is not a diss to their music. I do think they're entertaining. Yeah, they have some fun stuff. You know, they got songs here and there that I like, but don't come on here with that stand crap. I'm not the one. Like, I don't care enough. Like, when people get too emotionally attached to these celebrities and then be trying to threaten you and stuff, I'm like, listen, I know this is real important to you because you ain't got a whole lot else going on, but that's really not on my radar. So you're going to have to find somebody else who cares a bit more. All right. Anyway, let us see here. Avocado Queen says, same, Calvin, in the Bay Area, a 1-bedroom in my area is 20. I am blind. 2,800 per month. Oh, 28 to 4,000 per month. My place didn't even have a microwave. Now that's correct. Oof. Woo. Yeah, it's expensive out here. I always keep saying, like, I'd be feeling bad for like my generation and Gen X. Or Gen Z. We were just born in the wrong era. Because like to have been a boomer, you know, the luxury of just being able to get property at such a much cheaper rate and then seeing the appreciation in the last 20 years. You know how many people are going to be super, super rich if they choose to sell their home? Or, again, that generational wealth that they get to pass on to the next generation. Like, a lot of people in Black America, they're just now getting into that space where there's even something to pass down. You know, because, again, a lot of times some of us weren't even eligible for insurance, you know, because they weren't even giving insurance policies to Black folks, depending on where you lived and what company it was. And then when you talk about the FHA loans and who wasn't allowed to live where and the redlining and everything else like that, like, man, some generations have been able to just really hoard a lot of wealth and enjoy it. And now here comes the generations afterwards, and we over here just scraping it together, working hard with nothing. Man. Somebody said, please drop the oh, I know what that's about. Man. All right. Somebody said, tell them you ain't paying ish. And let me tell you what was trifling about this building. What was so funny, too. So the offer they gave me, they give you 2 offers in this building. So my lease isn't up for renewal until November. So they give you the option now, and they give you what that figure is going to be. And then you have a 2-week period to say yes or no. And then the next offer is going to be a bigger offer, meaning you're going to pay more, right? And I'm like, that's such crap, because really, like, that gives you 2 weeks to try to find a new place, right? 2 weeks to find a new place that has everything you already want, like, right? So I'm like, that is some nonsense. So you give me a stupid offer already, and then on top of that, if I don't take the stupid offer, there's only going to be a worse one that comes down later down the line. Like, that's nonsense. Fortunately, I can afford it, but it's just like, wow, y'all really tried it. But this is I'm only renewing this one time. I'm gonna find somewhere else to go. So look, I might be living in my friend's basement the next time y'all see me this time next year. That'll be fine. I'll save some money because I'm over it, man. All right. Calvin, you should talk about Tyler Perry's recent comments on how Black women should date married men who can only pay the light bill. Listen, everybody just date who you want. Date who you want and be happy. I'm gonna leave it at that. That way there ain't no arguments because y'all was letting me have it with about my 2 cents on Ebony K. Williams. I was like, okay, fine. So you know what? Date who you want. Go and be happy. Send me a wedding invite. I will be there and be the life of the party at the reception. I want everybody to be happy. So date who you want to date. Date who you feel is at your level or who is at your space where you can meet them and enjoy. I'll be at the wedding and I'll sit in the front row. I have a good looking suit on. I'm gonna be the best looking person in there next to the bride and the groom. Invite me. Everybody do what you want. That's where I'm at. At the end of the day, who are we to tell somebody who they can date or who they shouldn't date? Enjoy. All right. Let me see here. Belize Gal. Hey, what up, Belize Gal? All right. Said, can you imagine 40-year-old millionaires acting like street goons? Like, it's just, and then yeah, they getting older. Like, who wants to still be fighting at 40? Like, what? I mean, I got some relatives that still be fighting now. They be in like their 60s, be ready to throw hands, but still, that's some hard living. You've had all the opportunity in the world. You have everything you want. You literally can literally afford to live off the grid if you want to. You can create your own environment and have everything you ever want and ain't even got to deal with no nonsense. Y'all still out here ready to throw hands. Like, it's just not even worth it. When I think back to all the fights I've been in, I don't even fight like that, but the handful I've been in, none of them were really worth it. Not a single one. None of them. Like, but again, at the time it was ego, people around, you feeling froggy. I ain't no punk. It's kind of like when you watch the reality shows, and especially like something that would be like Zeus Network when they get to fighting. Most of them fights on them kind of shows aren't even really rooted in much. It's rooted on like a small tit for tat thing, and then it gets blown up. There's people around. They probably got liquor in there, and now everybody's ego's in the way. And and then here we go. And then they get to wrecking, and then they got a bottle. They done busted it over somebody's head. I'm like, y'all know how to stretch something. Too much. Too much. And the thing is, I am 100% sure that a lot of the entertainers that we love from the earlier eras also hated each other, but they wasn't beefing. Like, look, Aretha Franklin to me is a legend, but we know she ain't like nobody. But Aretha wasn't pulling up on nobody. Aretha was petty. She would just send a letter to the a fax to the Associated Press to say what she was mad about. I don't like the Dion, what she said at Whitney's funeral 5 years after the fact. I'm going to send something to the Associated Press. There's that. Folks were writing letters, Or you just made sure you came out with a really, really, really dope album or a song that was just way better than the other person, so they couldn't say nothing to you. And you just made sure you outsold them, or you made sure you had a bigger tour, right? And I get it. Everybody has their beefs. Everybody's not meant to like everybody. But Lord, I just think all of that was really stupid, just unnecessary. All right. All right. Lauren Boebert, who cares? That's that Colorado House representative. There was the clip of her. If you follow her, she's like Marjorie Taylor Greene #2, right? She almost lost her election, but barely won by a hair. But she's one of the main ones that's always talking about family values and we got to protect the children and everything. And then she's in that dang show over there, one step from giving that man a hand job in front of everybody. Family values. Family values. Okay, y'all be on some nonsense. And then let me see. Oh yeah, Teyana Taylor. I like that couple, Teyana and Iman. I forgot. The basketball player. I like that couple. Hopefully they can work it out. Apparently they have taken a break. They've separated. I was like, oh, sucks for them. I like them. By the way, like I said, that 1001 movie with Teyana was really, really good. That was such a good watch. All right. Only other major thing I had left on here, somebody was asking me about the whole UFO thing with the clip from Mexico where they had, let me see, they had the officials, and they're like, oh, you know, this is a body of something that is not from Earth that we have discovered, and then they unveiled it, and it was, to me, it looked like remember in is it Men in Black 1 or 2? It's the second Men in Black. Remember or is it the first one? It was the guy that was old that was dying. It was an alien that was real old that was like this big, and he was like, you know, the galaxy is in Orion's belt. It's in Orion's belt. The alien looked just like that to me. Like, I was like, wait a minute. So yeah, that alien to me looked just like that little thing. And I'm like looking at it because if you saw the picture, it kind of looks like ET as well. And so I'll say this: I do personally believe that there is life outside of what we know. But what I find so funny is how come every single time they try to say there's, you know, life outside or whatever, how come it's always this very stereotypical movie portrayal where, you know, it looks like something we would have seen in a movie? Like, me personally, I think if there is life that's out there, we wouldn't even be able to fathom what we're looking at. It might not even be something we could see, right? Like, I feel like we always look at life outside of Earth through a lens of life on Earth, if that makes any sense. So even when they talk about UFOs and stuff, I'm like, how come the aliens got the same kind of ships and stuff we got? They got the same kind of LED lights and everything flying through the sky. I just feel like if there's life out there, it's going to be something that's so foreign to what we've seen before, we wouldn't even know what to make of it. It would be something that you couldn't even like process. It's just something that's so not of this earth, you don't know what to do, right? I even think like the concept of life varies once you get out of our solar system, our galaxy. Maybe there's another parallel and a conversation of life that's something that we wouldn't even understand because we only know what we know here. Like on Earth, we have the conditions for life on Earth. That's kind of like why when they be going to Mars and be trying to dig for water and stuff, trying to see if life ever existed and all the other stuff, they're looking for things that would suffice to what life on Earth would be like, not on Mars where it's cold as hell, right? So I feel like if there is something out there, I don't think it's going to be what they keep trying to unveil to us. I don't think it's going to be something that has eyes and two arms and legs and maybe just got some slanted eyes and a big old forehead bigger than mine. Like, I'm like, I don't know about all that. Like, y'all, okay. Like, again, the galaxy is so huge, we still don't even know how big it is. So I know there's something else out there in addition to just us. But I don't think it's not going to be folks pulling up, take me to your leader. Like, I'm like, y'all watch so many movies. So when I saw that clip of them unveiling the alien, I just busted out laughing. I was like, y'all get on my nerves. So much, right? And besides, if there is life out there, why they want to come over here? Listen, if I was an alien and I was going past Earth, we not stopping. I didn't heard about that place. Keep going. They got shoes. Keep going. They got all kind of diseases and they violent. They kill everything. They got nuclear weapons and everything. And these people are crazy. Nope. They ain't got these things called guns. They just be shooting all the time. We ain't going over there. Absolutely not. Let's keep going somewhere else. Right? That's going to be a population that kills themselves off in the next 200 years if they ain't careful. So we're going to just go right past them. Right? Anyway. I was like, not this Men in Black special they got with these aliens. All right, that is all of my major topics. I just want to double check and make sure. Like I said, I do have a video on the Rolling Stone guy tomorrow where he get lit up a little bit. We were talking about this in the car because we were on a road trip yesterday. This is a fun little activity. So the challenge was, and this is totally left field, and this is perfect because y'all can think of your answers while I read the chat. All right, the question was, and this is for male R&B groups and R&B groups with women, right? So the question was, if you could create a 4-piece R&B group, whether male or female or both together, right? A 4-piece R&B group with members of another group, meaning like you're going to make an R&B group with 4 members and they have to be from other groups that have existed before. So I don't know, you take a member from the SWV and a member from En Vogue and a member from TLC and a member from Jade. Who's going to be your group? That was the question we had in the car. It took us forever to figure out what we would make. We was in the car arguing yesterday. But again, so that's the question. You're making a group. It can be it's an R&B group. It can be an all-male group. It can be an all group of women. It can be a co-ed group. But you have to take 4 members from different groups. And you can't have 2 members of the same group in here. So you can't take like You can't be petty and say, I'm gonna make, well, technically there were 6 members of Destiny's Child, so I'm gonna just take the 4 that I'm gonna take Kelly, Beyonce, Latavia, and Latoya, and that's gonna be my group. You can't do that. You have to mix it up. So only one Destiny's Child member if you use them. So if you do Michelle, you can't use Farrah, which probably none of y'all were gonna use, right? So I just want to see who would make what group. So that's the question while I read these comments. Y'all think of your answers. And then I'll tell y'all who mine was. And I did both the male groups and the women. All right. Oh, Johnathan Majors. I forgot about that clip. Yeah. I'm not gonna. It does look a little staged. And the thing is, if you knew where that school was, it's like in this area where all the artsy kids are whose parents work in Culver City and everything else like that. And so it's like, why? My thing is, I get if it is a PR stunt, so be it. But personally, when I see white kids and stuff fighting, the way I keep it moving and mind my business, because I'm not going over there and then, I pull one of them apart and it just so happens somebody else pulls up and thinks I'm attacking one of these white children. And then, in America, they like to shoot and everything else and make a citizen's arrest. And now I'm under somebody's car. Like, absolutely not. Like, them kids would have just been fighting. I would have kept it moving. Like, it is, sorry. Even in my own community, when these kids in DC be wrecking, I know to get out the way. Like they'll be done in a minute. I don't like to see them fight, and hey, but I'm not jumping in to break up a brawl with a bunch of 16-year-olds. Like hell, all of them my size anyway. What am I supposed to go over there and do? Before I know it, I'll be got knocked out too. I remember my friend AJ. He and I years ago, we were still in college. We had just left Wheaton Mall on the Red Line. We just went Wheaton Mall shopping because they had Sports Zone. Sports Zone is where I used to get all my shoes from. And so we walking bags galore, right? And we were walking through because you had to go through the parking garage to get to the metro station. And there was this group of teenagers just going in, like 5 or 6 of them on each other. And he's like, hey, we should stop them. I was like, no, we shouldn't. We gonna not have no clothes. Like they gonna, first of all, they would have stole our bags and everything. This ain't our neighborhood. We don't know these kids. Mind our business. Like, nope, keep it moving. Sorry. I don't break up fights with people. I am not about to be nobody's collateral. The only fights I ever broke up with kids that I had to work with, and there weren't really a whole lot of those. Other than that, absolutely not. Jojo said Nicki's fans were bashing Janet Jackson. I saw that. That was all some misunderstanding. That's some petty stuff anyway. Janet minds her business and she don't bother nobody. And Nicki handled that appropriately and cleared that up. So that's handled. But that was a very, yeah, people need to get off the internet sometimes. Just too much time on the internet. Said, even my community college is not as cheap when my mom went in the 80s. Yeah, even community college has gotten high. I will say I'm really happy. One of my really good friends just got their student loans forgiven because they went to one of those universities that had the accelerated program and screwed everybody over. Like their bachelor's they still have, but I was so happy when they texted me and was like, because they owed $60,000 and like all of their loans were forgiven. I was so happy. And they also got a check for what they had paid into their loans. And mind you, they graduated in 2013. I was like, ooh, I was so happy for them. I was like, okay, Biden administration, y'all got that one right. Good job. Right. I always remember their graduation day because their graduation party was the same day as the Zimmerman verdict. And man, I could not enjoy the party because that verdict came out. I was in there sour face the rest of the party. But no, I was really happy they got their loans forgiven because if anybody deserves their loans to be forgiven, it was them because they have done so many wonderful things collectively in their community. And they've started a nonprofit and they got tuition payments to help kids across the water with schools and then school supplies for kids in DC. Like, so I was so happy they got their stuff forgiven. I was like, amen to that. Any thoughts on Ashton Kutcher and Mika Kunis? I don't really follow them like that, but I saw that they had tried to release a statement about their ex-co-worker who had been convicted of the sexual assaults and everything like that. The apology they put out is one of those things you put out after you catch the smoke, right? I just think when it comes to those kind of accusations, I just think it's very wise to think before you do anything. Because a lot of times people will say, oh, well, I know them. I've worked with them. They would never do something like that. And then again, we only know what people present to us. We don't know people behind closed doors. We don't know people when they're alone, right? And so it's one thing to be supportive, but it's another thing to try to you know, and mind you, this is after the conviction. like Lord, you know, it's just I don't know. Some things I feel like people should tread very lightly with. You know what I mean? That's a thing where it's like, you really, do you have to release a statement publicly? I don't know, but sucks for them. Enjoy. All right. Um, Calvin said Medea next chase. Yeah, I ain't got time for Tyler Perry and his whatever he talking about. Tyler, just do your, everybody date who you want to date. Tyler, stop. Yeah, and I do hear the aspect of what he's saying about, like, you know, seeing the goodness in people and building a relationship on that. But I also understand there's layers to these conversations, and you know, if some people have decided that they're in a certain space and there's something that they specifically want, it's their prerogative to want that. All right, and that's all I got. Date who you want, be happy. Speaking of, I got this makes me think back to that play, the Diary of a Mad Black Woman, the play. So remember in the play, because the movie mirrors the play, but remember, I think he actually ended up having to change the play because so many people were pissed off about the outcome. Because in the play, the actress who would have been Kimberly Elise's character, remember, like, Kimberly Elise has a really terrible husband who, you know, she had helped him start a business, and then he was the one in charge. He stepped out, had a woman on the side, had a baby on the side, kicked Kimberly Elise out the house, and, you know, but then there was an accident. He was paralyzed and all this other stuff. Like, so in the play, they get back together. And I remember watching that in middle of high school. Like, why would she go back to him when she just met the UPS man? Like, she had just met the UPS guy who was like the dream guy that had everything she wanted and was going to treat her right. And she was going to go back to the old broke up dude that just learned to walk yesterday because he wasn't paralyzed anymore. Because, you know, in Tyler Perry productions, everything moves real fast. And, you know, you'd be blinking one for yes and two for no on Tuesday, and then you're doing backflips on Wednesday. She left the nice guy that was ready to sweep her off her feet and go back to the guy who treated her terribly for 20 years. And the reasoning was, because I know he has the whole Christian approach to his plays, was, oh, well, in God's eyes, divorce. I was like, what? And I was like 15 watching this, like, oh, hell no. Nah. What? And then the movie came out, and it was like, no, she gonna actually go with Boris. No, that's not Boris. That's what's his name? Shamar Moore. Shamar Moore with the braided wig instead. Mess. Let me see. Oh, I forgot about them too. Somebody said, did you talk about Jenny and Jeezy? I didn't really follow them like that, but I saw that they got a split too. Hey, everybody breaking up this season, and it's about to be cuffing season. This is the time you're supposed to be booed up. If you break up with anybody, you do it at the end of spring so you can have the summer to run the streets. But okay, I don't recommend doing that, but I'm just saying, like, Lord, everybody breaking up. All right. OQ21 said, "Child, we got bigger fish to fry. I ain't worried about aliens." That's the other thing. Some people have like are like terrified of it. I ain't worried about it. We got other nonsense going on. Like, let the alien ships land over here. I'm about to be like, look, y'all don't have to wait in line because we got other things going on right now. So unless you know how to fix the problems we got, like, I don't know what you want with us. Do you know how to fix the climate? Do y'all got like a magical thing and you can make the O2 levels go, the CO2 levels go back down, and the temperatures reset and correct themselves and whatever? If you can't do that, what else y'all need? Like, I ain't got nothing for you. I don't want to come with you to your planet because I don't know what's over there. They might be races over there too. You know, humans just might be the black folks of the species in another planet. So I don't even want to go with y'all. So no, I'm good. Anyway. I mean, remember that movie V? This was for the older folks on here. We had to watch that in school, which has nothing to do with curriculum. But it was like a TV series called V. And I think it came out in the 80s. Let me see. And it was about like this alien invasion when the aliens came. And they didn't know they were aliens because they looked like humans. But then under them, they were like some kind of lizard or something. Y'all remember that movie? I want to make sure it's the right one. Yeah, TV series from 1983. Yeah, for some reason, our music teacher, Mr. Roaming, in 4th grade, had us watching that in music class. And mind you, there's no music in that movie. I don't think there's music in the movie. I just remember watching the alien lady pick up a rat and eat it. I was like, oh, okay, man. Oh my God, they still put me on commercial. They put me on commercial on all the good parts. The YouTube better be giving me a real nice check with these ads that they keep putting me on, cutting me off all mid-sentence. Rude. All right, let me see. All right, did anybody answer my question about the groups? Let's see. Oh, somebody said Cisco's in their group for sure. Technically, Cisco was in the group I had for the men as well. Okay, somebody, we here. Somebody said Calvin making a road trip boring. First of all, I didn't even come up with that question. I was riding and playing the music, and somebody else came. Well, the first question they had was, if you could only listen to 3 people forever, who would those 3 people? And not just like their music, but like they would sing other people's songs too. Like, and so that was a question we was over here stuck on. And then the next question was like the 5, because all of us are music heads in the car. Then the next question was like 5 greatest, your 5 greatest vocalists of all time. And then we got to, and then I had the last question, which was the groups. Whatever. All right. All right. Hey, Bibby said 1 from Playa, 1 from Jade, and Vogue and Boys. You gotta say the members, man, because that's a whole lot of variety. That's about 3, 8 plus 3, 11. How many people was in Playa? 4. That's like 15 people. We need to cut it down to 4. So you got to give me some people. If you say in Vogue, is it Dawn? Is it Terry? Is it Max? Is it Cindy? Man, let me see. Boys the Men. Is it Wanye? Is it Nathan? Is it Sean? Is it Michael? Okay. Archive Sunset said Normani Tinashe. Yes, she was in a group. The black girl from Little Mix and Adrian. Okay, so you want a visual group that's going to do some dancing. Okay. Calvin always coming up with creative games. Thinking his podcast about starting at center, the paperclip games and all. Oh yeah, the rice challenge. Yeah. So yeah. By the way, I appreciate that y'all like the podcast. I'm not gonna lie, I was very, very nervous about uploading the podcast episodes to YouTube as far as working with the community center. I didn't think people would like the first episode of the community center one just because I had to give so many details to set up the rest of the stories. I was like, oh, I hope I don't lose my audience on this because this is a long episode. So I'm glad y'all actually have enjoyed. Like I said, I changed all the names, so none of those names match anybody. So don't be in there trying to research and piece stuff together and figure out who's who. I didn't even name different cities and stuff just to mix it all up. But yeah, I'm glad that y'all are enjoying that podcast. But yeah, the Rice Challenge is this game we had. This is back in the early years at the center when we ain't had no money. We had to find creative ways to keep the kids entertained. And so me and Ava, that's the name in the podcast, that's the coworker. Ava and I, what we would get is we'd get 2 buckets. And we would fill the bucket with a bunch of rice, not cooked, just dry rice out the bag. So these 2 buckets would be filled with rice, and then we'd have a bunch of paper clips. And the paper clips are also color coordinated, and we mix it in the bags with rice. And then we put the 2 buckets with the rice on the table. We blindfold the kids, and they have to just kind of dig and try to get the paper clips and get as many paper clips out as they can and put them on the table. And all the paper clips were, again, they had different colors like red, yellow, blue, white, or silver, or there was a big one. And they all had different point totals and everything else like that. And some point totals were negative. Some point totals were positive. And so they would go in teams. And every single time somebody would go, the score would be like 40 to 15. And then the next group would go and maybe the score jumped from 113 to negative 12. So that game would be lit. But them kids would be hooked on that. But yeah, we had to be creative. We was making up stuff. All right. J Law said Coco, Fantasia, Jasmine Sullivan, and Mary J. Blige. Okay, that's a good group. That's some good singers there. Christine said Terry Ellis from In Vogue. All right, she was one of my favorites. Nicki Gilbert from Brownstone. I like her, but she's gonna have attitude. Oh, Mila from 702. Taj. Okay, you know what? Taj from SWV. I think Taj would be good because Taj would be your middle because you got 3 sopranos in here, so Tyler would be your alto to keep the low. Okay, because all right, makes sense. Let's see. Understandably so, the Zimmerman verdict was a tragedy. Yeah, J. Hart, that day I was so pissed because I just knew Zimmerman was being convicted. And so when he got off, and then I think what made it even worse was all the people that were commenting, like Ann Coulter was talking about thank God, and Trump was like the jury had no choice but to. I'm like, F all of y'all. I was so over that. Melody said I would have Coco, any of the original ones from En Vogue, maybe Cindy. What's his name from Boys and Men? Wanye, and anybody from Take 6 that would be able to sing anything. Okay. Somebody said I don't like Christina Aguilera. Wait, what happened? Where did that come from? We ain't even brought her up this whole video. I like her though sometimes. Let me see. Sure. Shanariah Williams Simpson said KC, Tevin Campbell, Dwele from Chicago, Kenny Lattimore. Okay. And then the girl group, she said Emily Sande. I don't know what happened to her, but I did like her music. One of my favorite songs of hers was Suitcase and Clown and River. I used to love those. And what's that song? Wonder. That's what it's called. Emily Sande, Layla Hathaway, Deborah Cox, and Tweet. That is an interesting combination. I would love to hear how that blend sounds. All right. Lee said that Tyler Perry movie with Journey Smollett is the stuff of nightmares. His movies, all his movies be okay. I did like Family That Prays. That was the one I did like. That was a good one. The one with Sanaa Lathan. I enjoyed that one. I liked the first Why Did I Get Married? I didn't care for the second one because the plot kind of started going everywhere. It went from a comedy to a horror flick to now Janet getting thrown down the stairs and the dude about to bite her cheek off. I'm like, what am I watching? Wait a minute. And then Janet chased the husband. He'd have got hit by a car. I was like, wait a minute now. There's a lot going on in this movie. Like, okay. Hearing it said, Michael Jackson, Cisco, Lauryn Hill, Missy Elliott. I like them. That's a combination. They said that's such a random group. I tried thinking of women, but it's hard. I think most of the women artists I like were solo, especially in Powerhouse. And that's what made it hard. Like you could only pick people who were supposed to already be in a group. Like you have to grab somebody who's from another group. That's which kind of limits the playing field. Let's see. Somebody said, what if you went to another planet? It was even more ghetto. I remember V. That would be the other thing. Like you go to the planet and you can't even get back. And now you got to stay over there. It's negative 26 degrees. All you got is a windbreaker coat on because the alien ship pulled up while you was walking back from the grocery store. Hey, you want to come? You done jumped in the ship. Man, it took you 36 million light years away in 10 minutes. All right. All right. Y'all ain't following directions. I said they got to be from a group. Y'all naming all these solo people. Lord. But I'll still see who y'all got on here. Let me see. Tyler said Mariah, Whitney, Brandy, Jasmine Sullivan, Celine Dion. Look, you even added too many people. I said 4 people. You named me 5 folks. I'm just kidding. Let's see. Yes, Christine said she understood the assignment. Let me see. Christine, did I read yours? Let me go back up and see what you said. Wait, Christine, I think I read yours. I'm trying to go back. Let me see. Oh, I don't want to. It's too far up. Christine, just put it back in the chat again. I think I read yours. I can't remember. Christine. Well, now I sound like Theo on Cosby when he had that song about Justine. Justine. Okay, I'll come back to it. All right. Let me see who else y'all got on here. Okay, somebody said Brian from Jagged Edge. Oh, that's Spoken Wisdom. Brian from Jagged Edge, Slim from 112, Believe from Soul for Real. Whoa, who? Not you knowing about Imagine. All right. What's that song that? Oh, all right. That's gonna be my to-do list tonight. You just made me remember somebody I haven't. That's a name I forgot about. Let me write that one down. Wow, I can't even think of. All right, there's a song Imagine had that I cannot. That just popped in my head, and I can't even remember what it's called. And I'm not even gonna try to attempt the melody because I know I'm gonna have it wrong. Somebody said I didn't even know we were playing the game. Oh, well, let me explain the rules one more time. All right, the rules were you are making an R&B group. It can be an all-male group. It can be an all-women group, or it can be co-ed, but you can only use members that have existed from other groups. So, like, you take a member from, I don't know, Jodeci, and a member from Boyz II Men, and a member from Drew Hill, and a member from Silk, and you have to make a group with only 4 members. Like, that's the goal. That's the challenge. Let me see. Okay, Stella Avenger said 7th Streeter. Yes, she was actually in 2 groups. Kelly Rowland, Normani, and Shamari from Black. That actually would be a fun group because I like Shamari. She's a lot of fun. Chrissy said, Calvin, I need that shirt. Amazon. Got it right off Amazon. Powerline. Right up my alley. I was like, let me relive my childhood for a second. All right. Why is there so many? Yeah, YouTube has definitely done something different because they've never had ads run while I'm live. That's some new stuff. I promise y'all that's not me turning on the ads. I'm clearly running my mouth and the ads just come on while I'm talking. All right. Oh, I'm sorry, Jahar. Thank you. I did ask 2 different questions. Thank you for clearing it up. Calvin, you also asked the 5 singers that you listen to for the rest of your life. You are absolutely correct. So I stand corrected. Or no, it was 5 singers that you labeled as your 5 greatest, and then 3 that you listen to for the rest of your life. So my bad, Tyler, because I think Tyler Hackner was the one that listed the 5 with Whitney. He said Whitney, Mariah, Celine, Jasmine, and I think Brandy's what he said. My bad, Tyler. All right. Brian Robinson said Coco from SWV, Mila from 702, Chili from TLC, Claudette Ortiz from City High. All right. Let's see. Okay, listen here, Belize Gal. You're going to get enough talking trash on my lives. She said it got too many rules. It's boring. No, that's the point. So you got to think about it. See, she be coming after Janet all day. Now you're coming after my game, too. I would like an apology letter written in cursive. Thank you. All right. Portia said Lauryn Hill, Wanye, Coco, and John from Silk. All right. Jedi Dawes said Patty, Michael, Tyrese, and Angie Stone. All right. Stella said, oh, Powerline reminded me of Bobby Brown, and I haven't seen him in anyone's group. Powerline, I really do feel like the imaging of Powerline from that movie was kind of Bobby Brown because he kind of did have the Gumby cut. All right. All right. We're about to wrap up anyway. It's been about 3 hours. It's time to get off this thing. Noble said Janique Nicole, Diana Ross, and Utada Hakai. I forgot about Utada. That was when you want to talk like, okay, is Utada technically K-pop? I think she is, but she was from like early 2000. Utada had to be like 2001, 2002, I think. Lee's talking trash now. She said, I grew up writing in cursive. You ain't saying nothing but a word. Okay, well, I expect my letter. And I'm gonna be like how my dad was. Like when I used to get in trouble, because my parents did not really like to spank us too often. By the way, side note, one of y'all tried it in my comments one time. I was telling some story about this moment where my mom and I had a moment at the house, and somebody in the comments was like, your mama is toxic, and gave all these reasons why. Because my mom, I forgot what happened, but she went to slap me because I said something smart, and I put my hand up to block her hand. And I always said in black households, if you block your face or whatever, parents, to them, that means it's an invite for a fight. And so she let me have it. She ain't hit me or nothing. She was just yelling and fussing. And they're like, your mama's toxic. Don't be talking about my mama. Okay, listen, I was getting on her nerves that day. Does it justify anything? No, but no, we will not come after my mama. My mama has been good to me and paid for my school out of pocket. Okay. So yeah, if I was being a smart mouth teenager running my mouth and had to get checked one time, so be it. Because at that time, my father was in Alaska. It's me, the bigger teenager that's bigger than her, and the younger brother that's getting on her nerves, and I was feeling myself. But going back, my dad, when we were little, it's like I said, they didn't like really spanking or popping on us or nothing like that. He used to make us have to write when we got in trouble. And he used to always say it wrong. He's like, oh, since you want to cut up, you gonna write a composite. You know, he meant to say like composition. You gonna write a composite. It better be 3 pages. And it better be neat, because I was left-handed and your hand smudges. And I used to have the worst handwriting. Man, if it wasn't neat, he would just get the paper, do it again. I was like, man. Like, if you listen to my podcast, I think the 4th episode is called the running away episode. I literally ran away because I didn't want to do the composite. Because what he would do too, if you didn't make the deadline, he would add 2 more pages. And every time you missed the deadline, he keep adding. So I think I was up to 15 pages. I'm like, I ain't doing this. I'm out of here. I was like 9 or 10. And so I took my coat. Oh, and I took the Bible with me. And I wasn't planning to read it, but I just took it because I was like, well, if they catch me, they'll be like, oh, he loves the Lord. He took the Bible with him. And then maybe I won't get in trouble. So I took the Bible in my coat. And I told my mom, I was like, I'm running away. And she's like, okay. Because she was cooking. She was like, boy, please. And so I went right on outside and ran away to the park. And then my mom found me maybe like 2 hours or 3 hours later. Because my dad had went and circled around looking for me with the Jeep. And I was hiding in the slide at the playground. And he didn't find me. My dad was like, well, he'll bring his butt back home when he get hungry. And so my mom was like, that's my baby. He ain't about to be out there. Because this is when we're in Italy. We're in a whole foreign country. I'm talking about I'm running away, right? And I remember I saw my mom. She had this red sweatpants suit on and an umbrella because it was raining that day. And I was with my friend Ricky because Ricky was outside. Well, actually, first, I had gone to, I think I went to Ricky's house. And I was like, I'm going to need a place to stay for a few days. Mind you, I'm 10. Ricky's like, yeah, you can't come over here. But he was like, we can play outside, though. So I think I was with Keith and my friend Ricky. We were just outside. And then we're walking around the neighborhood because ain't nothing to do. It's raining. It's cold. And they're like, oh, I think I see your mom. And I look. And I see her. I was like, shit. And so I didn't even get into, like, I got into, like, the run. And my mom said, you better not. And I was trying to do just one. Mama had that arm like Space Jam when Jordan's arm just got longer and longer, and just what a time. It's in the podcast. It's called The Running Away Fell. But yeah, she to be a child again. Okay, Utada is J-pop. Okay, got it. She's not the same girl that made the somebody. Maybe that's a K-pop version. Somebody made a different version of Janet Jackson's Doesn't Really Matter. I don't know if that's a J-pop artist or a K-pop artist, but it happened in like 2001 or 2002. I can't remember who it was. All right. Nerd Lars, Calvin, you talk about the Rolling Stone co-founder dissing black and female rock artists. Not on this live because I have a video coming out tomorrow night about it. And I can't wait to finish dragging him. I needed to just give him his own video because I had a whole lot that I wanted to say. And I want to, I like my pre-made content because then I can put my descriptions and my visuals and pictures to help as opposed to the live. So yeah, that should be coming out tomorrow night. If it does not come out tomorrow night, it will come out the day after. But yeah, I got some words for him. They tried it. Folks always want to have authoritative dispositions on everything and swear that everything they do is better than everybody else's. V. Carter said, Kevon Edmonds, Don Robinson, Lucky Day, and Jasmine Sullivan. Okay. Yeah, they said, don't you come for Mama Calvin. Yeah, don't come after my mama. My mom was good to me. Love my mama. All right, that's where my sense of humor comes from. All right. Actually, the whole family, to be honest. Shannon Wright said, my mom stopped whooping me when I blocked one of her switches one time. Then it was extremely painful. Then it was extremely painful exercising. I remember, like, I had an uncle that made you do, you know how you had to do the cockroach thing where you like had to like sit on and just like sit like that on the wall. I had an uncle that used to make us do that, like, man. Or when you have to like get in push-up position, but like it's like your arms like this on the ground and you just got to stay on it. That crap used to hurt. Or what's the other thing? It was something else we had to do. It'll come to me later. again, each generation learns from the mistakes of the past. So I don't even fault parents from those earlier eras because that's what everybody was doing at the time. You learn from the past. All right. All right. I'm trying to get off here, and y'all are giving all such great commentary. I don't want to hop off yet. Okay, A. Cooper. Mavis Staples, Gladys Knight, who I've said a million times is my favorite alto. Frankie Beverly and Ron Isley. All right. I remember this too, El Picasso. I had to stay after school and do sentences. I will not say bad words 500 times. I feel like that's a generational thing because we used to have to write sentences too. Like in school, if you got in trouble, you had to write sentences. I used to hate that. Or if the whole class got in trouble, like you had to put your heads down, which for me, that was nap time. Okay. But they would make you write sentences and stuff. And I didn't like when a teacher would put your name on the board. Like we always had a thing where the teachers would put your name on the board. Yeah, I guess that's like the public shaming thing. They put your name on the board. And I think at the school in Italy, if you got your name on the board and one check, that was lunch detention. If you had your name on the board and 2 checks, then you went to the principal's office. And you got a phone call home. Like, man, Mr. Roberts, I used to have my name. My name was on the board almost every day. I wouldn't get to like the check, but my name would always end up on the board. Because if you were just talking or something, I'm like, dang. But to be fair, like he had half the class on the board. He ain't like most of us. He was like Mr. Roberts. I was this old white man that was like 76 at the time, ready to retire. But I think the wife, I don't know. I just know he was over teaching, and we were like one of his next to last classes ever. So he was over it. But that mean ass old man, oh God, that man. I talk about him in the podcast too. It's the episode, The Italy Years, 3rd grade. That man was terrible. All right. Jediah said Ricky was there, but where was Bobby? So dang, y'all really do listen to the podcast. Okay, all right. No, Bobby is the friend I made when I moved back to the United States. This was still in Italy, so I didn't meet Bobby until 6th grade, and he lived next door to me once we got back to the United States. But Ricky was one of my best friends when I lived in Italy. It was me, Ricky, Dwayne, Keith, and this other kid, Marcus. Those were like my 5 closest friends when I lived in Europe. And the cool thing is I'm in contact with Ricky and Dwayne. I haven't heard from Keith probably since 7th grade. And I haven't heard from Marcus either since I moved. But the other 2, we still keep up, which is kind of cool. Dwayne got like 3 or 4 kids. Ricky got I think he got 2. And then here I am still running the streets. But all right, let's see. Libra Girl said their top 5 vocalists of all time: Luther Vandross, Whitney Houston, Fred Hammond, Prince, Bonnie Raitt. All right. Let's see. This is a very warm way to end the live. Normally we'd be on here cussing people out all day. And, all right, y'all, I'm going to bed. Good night. Evo7 said the trauma and funny memories of growing up in a Black household. I'm telling you, like some of that stuff is really terrible that we dealt with, but it's also funny to look back on. Like that really happened. Like I love my grandma, but she was off the chain. Like fortunately, like me and my cousins, we were all spoiled. Like we got the warm grandma, but my grandma was something else to my mom and her sisters. But I remember this one time. I think I told this before. Oh, Marcus, I hope Marcus ain't listening. When we used to go to Savannah, me and Brandon always stayed at my grandma's house, and Marcus often stayed at my Aunt Gloria's house, just because my grandma had she only had a 2-bedroom house. And Marcus, his sister, also stayed at my Aunt Gloria's house. So he always would stay, because if you don't know, like my brother Marcus is technically my cousin, he's adopted, but so keep it all in the family. So everybody's still connected, but. So we would always have him stay at Gloria so he could bond with his sister and everything else like that. And so one time he got to stay at grandma's house with us. And me and Brandon already had an attitude because Marcus is 7 years younger than me, 9 years younger than Brandon. And he, the little brother that's going to be in the way, get on your nerves and do stuff. And so we were already mad. And then Marcus forgot his pajamas. Oh, he forgot his pajamas. And so my grandma was like, oh, he forgot his pajamas. go in there and get one of my gowns. And like, my grandma made Marcus wear her nightgown to sleep. It was so funny. And I was a horrible big brother that day because we were in there dying. And Marcus was so mad. And my grandma, you don't need no shorts under that gown. And she made him go to sleep in there with her. You come in here and lay with me because you ain't about to be out there getting on their nerves. Marcus was that poor boy. If Marcus writes a tell-all book, we're going to look like some terrible people because, Lord, God bless my grandma. I miss that lady. All right. All right. Let's see. Let's see. California girl 3507 said, it's crazy how all black mothers threatened mine didn't threaten to kill me. Threatened to kill us all the time. And it was normal talking about, I brought you in this world, I'll take you out. Like, ma'am, that's murder. Oh, what a time. What a time. Yeah, y'all really do be following the podcast. Osai said, your grandma said middle finger and rip, which is very true. The last time I saw my grandma, she gave me $20 in the middle finger. All right, that was her way of telling me she loved me. All right. All right, we are gonna get off in exactly. I'll go till 12:30 because I need to go to bed. I do work tomorrow. But no, this has been fun. Okay, so let me see. The group I had when I was in the car, the group I said, I'm trying to remember what I said. For the male group, I initially said Kevon Edmonds. I said Cisco from Drew Hill. I said Tevin Campbell. Wait. I'm sorry. Tevin Campbell's not in the group. Take that back. I said Kevon Edmonds. I said Cisco from Drew Hill. Dang, who did I say? I done forgot in the car. Oh, Wanya from Boys to Men and Ralph Tresvant from New Edition. And I was like, that was my male group because I was like, I needed Ralph because I needed somebody with a unique tone and texture in the group. Everybody can't be a squaller. And then for the girl group, I said Coco from SWV. I said Athena Cage from Cut Close. That's the girl that's singing on Nobody with Keith Sweat. So yeah, Coco from SWV, Athena Cage from Cut Close. I was fighting with the In Vogue members of which one I wanted because Terry is technically my favorite member of In Vogue vocally, but I think for my group I would want, and then it was between Max or Don. I was fighting, but I ended up going with Don. And then the last member technically actually was T-Boz from TLC because you need somebody with a unique tone, somebody to take the low and blend it on out. It was between T-Boz and Michelle Williams from Destiny's Child. All right. So I was like, yeah, because you need a bit of everything, a mix, right? Everybody can't be a squaller and hit the highest notes. Otherwise, the blends are going to be piercing. It's going to be too high. All right. Let's see. By the way, if Marcus is ever in town and he's on one of these lives and we are on this together, we will not bring up the nightgown story because he hates when I tell that. All right. Christine Stephens said best five for a female group: Patti LaBelle, Whitney Houston, Fantasia, Gladys Knight, and Mariah Carey. All right. Oh, and then when we had the question of our favorite top five vocalists of all time, mine changes every week, but at the time that we were in the car, no, actually, who did I say? I knew I said Whitney Houston. I said Whitney Houston. Who else did I add? My alto that I chose at the moment for how I was feeling, I put Jasmine Sullivan. And then for me, it was between Luke James and Tevin Campbell at the time. But Luke was in the mix, Stevie was in the mix, but I could only pick three. So I was like, dang. But no, yeah, we was in that car going through it, trying to pick these people. And then I forgot about the whole gospel side, because that's another conversation, because all the real singers are on the gospel end. I'm like, we'll be here all day. But yeah, that was a fun activity. All right, Belize gal, I'm about you and I about to box. Call my game boring one more time. Let me see. All right. Yeah, it's hard. Like, it's hard when you start doing like an all-time list because it changes. Like, because those are just who I name, but like some of my favorite vocalists in general are like Luther, Phil Perry. I already said Tevin Campbell, Tank, Luke James. I really enjoy Luke James's voice. Joe is who I missed. Joe should have been in my male group. I'm gonna swap out who's getting kicked out my group. I'm gonna kick out Cisco. So now my male group is gonna be Kevon. Oh, Joe can't be in the group because he's solo. Never mind. That's why. But no, Joe's one of my favorites. Phyllis Hyman, Layla Hathaway, Brandy, Tony, Gladys. I love the emotions. I love the blend they had. The three of them. Well, they've had a few lineup changes, but the lineup of the emotions that's on the song Flowers, I loved. Who else? Favorite vocalist? I already said Whitney. Patty, of course, is one for different reasons. Eddie Kendricks has my favorite falsetto out of all of the falsetto singers. Dennis Edwards is one of my favorite vocalists. Eddie Levert, especially when he was in OJ's. Eddie used to sing down. Teddy P. Like, it's hard to just narrow that down to only like 3 people. You just can't do it. Let's see. Who is this? This is Gray Matter said, thank you. Calvin, do you ever go hang out at the front porch in DC or listen to Go-Go? I listen to Go-Go, but I don't think I've ever been to the front porch. Let me see. Also, shout out to Uptown Rob. Now, she has a channel I really like. She does a book club on her channel, but what she does is she actually reads the book on the actual channel, and then she'll go chapter by chapter. But on her videos, like, she always has a cranking go-go song at the beginning or the end of her videos. But whatever song that she has had playing for like the last year, at the end of her videos, I don't even know who's singing, but I be singing for my life every time it come on. It's this go-go song, and the lady is going in. I don't even know the song, but I'm like, sing. But no, I do like go-go. Let me see where this place is at. The front porch. Maybe I've been there. I'm not sure. Because I prefer. Wait, it's in Alexandria? Is the front porch in Alexandria, Virginia? No, I really ain't been there then. I don't be in Virginia like that. I don't think that's the place. Maybe it is. Who knows? Yeah, Gray Matters. Is it in Virginia or is it a different place? But no, I don't think I've been there then. But let me see. Yeah, Uptown Rob has a fun channel. Her books are really fun to catch up with, or the books that she covers. Shantae Moore, Ashley Jade. I forgot her. She's one of my absolute favorites. Favorites. I've been trying to interview her for my channel, but she don't be getting back to nobody. It's fine. She done got married and she happy and stuff. And Stephen Hill got her all over the country touring and stuff and doing programs, so she's booked and busy. But I would love to interview Shantae Moore on my channel because I think she is somebody who is very slept on, has these beautiful bodies of work. My favorite album of hers is A Love Supreme, which is actually the album that didn't even blow up like that, but it has one of my favorite songs of all time called Thank You for Loving Me on it. Beautiful arrangement. But no, I really enjoy Shantae Moore. And she's really good when she does background vocals for other artists as well. Let's see. Yeah, she got married again. All right, it's 12:30, y'all. I need to go to bed. So, we are gonna call it a night. Okay, Little I3D, Deborah Killings, one of my favorite vocalists as well. That is the 4th member of TLC. All right, on all them songs you hear her, and it's so funny when you listen to Fan Mail and you listen to Automatic. For some reason, on the hook of Automatic, I don't know if they forgot to finish recording it, but there's one part where you hear that's just Automatic, and it's only Deborah singing. It's not even T-Boz and Chill. I said, wait a minute, this is just Deborah. Y'all done forgot to cover over that part, but okay. But yeah. Anyway, this has been a dope live. Like I said, I'm going to work on getting that video out to you guys with old boy that had so much to say with Rolling Stone and that nonsense. Thank y'all for rocking with me. Again, I guess YouTube has done something different with the ads. This is some new stuff. I ain't seen it before, so I will get to the bottom of that. But until then, stay sane, stay safe, and mind your business so you can age well. All right. Good night, folks.